little bit late this evening. Oh, I always forget to do that. I would like to welcome everyone who's here, and I would like to remind the audience and board members to silence cell phones and electronic devices. Tonight's board meeting is being live streamed on Ukiah Unified's YouTube channel. The link is accessible on our website. Trustees, be sure your microphones are on like Ann's is. If audience members wish to address the board, please fill out a public comment form and present it to our executive assistant over here prior to the beginning of public comment. Public comment is taken for items not on the agenda, and each speaker is given 5 minutes. Public comment for items on the agenda is taken at the time of the item. Each speaker is given 5 minutes at that time also. So at this point, turn my page here. We will have the flag salute. So I would like to ask Mr. Barrett if he would lead the flag salute. Thank you. Okay, we have a report out from closed session.
Yes, regarding item B7, liability claims, it was moved by Mulgard, seconded by Van Sant to approve the claim as presented. It was approved roll call vote 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We need to approve the agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
We have one change on
Okay.
item E1. We are removing that from the agenda. It will come back in a more comprehensive way at the June meeting.
Motion to approve the agenda besides E1.
I will second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. I guess we don't have our student advisor here tonight.
Well, AP testing is happening, so it could be.
We'll go visit
Yes.
Carolyn at school one day.
Okay, we can do that. So do we have any public comments tonight for items not on the agenda? None received. Okay, thank you. So then we will go to employee organizations and CSEA. Do we have a report from CSEA? Stephanie.
Steph, can you speak into the mic?
Thank you. Good evening. California legislators recognizes the important contributions of classified school employees and named the third full week of May Classified School Employees Week. Classified employees play crucial roles in our schools, from transporting and feeding students to teaching them vital skills and ensuring that schools are operating smoothly. Classified employees are integral to public education. This year, the dates are May 21st through May 27th. And I encourage you all to take the time to thank the classified staff during this week. Our CSCA team are holding our first annual barbecue for Classified School Employees Week tomorrow, May 12th at Todd Grove Park at 5:15 p.m. Anyone and everyone is welcome to join us for fun, food, and fellowship. CSCA has extended the deadline to apply for 2 $500 scholarships offered to seniors of CSEA members. We want to make every effort to award these monies to our students. If you know anyone that currently works for us, is a CSEA member, and has a senior in the high school year, please advise them to apply. They can contact Heather McCreary at the high school for an application. As you may know, we have begun our negotiations for the 2017-18 school year and look forward to having a successful and productive second meeting this month. We would like to thank the district and board members for your support and respect of the classified unit during our negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, Terry, we have a report from UTA.
Good evening. Thank you. Sorry I can't look at all of you at the same time.
Yeah.
The sun's coming in. That's good. UTA has been really busy this past month. We are, as we speak, deciding the UTA $1,500 scholarship for the high school. We are beginning work on our bylaws, which we plan to have revised by this summer. As you all know, teachers are busy with testing and end-of-the-year events, and just being out in the schools and seeing the growth from students from second grade from the beginning of the year to the end of the year is just amazing. Every year it amazes me. I don't know why. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I just can't believe how much a child grows in a year, and that they are entrusted to us for that year, and that we get to see that and be part of that and help with that. I'm really happy that our school district is working on providing healthy beverages for many of our events. We're going to be having infused waters at many of our celebrations and graduations, and I'm really excited about that. As many of you know, I have pushed the wellness policy for years. That's putting it mildly, and I'm just really excited that that is happening, just because people know it tastes better and it's healthier and it's beautiful, and I hope that we continue in that way. We honor our retirees at this time of the year. On May 23rd, we are having a retirement dinner for them. Several of them have been involved with our union for years as reps, as bargaining folks, as health committee members, and our union is really going to miss them, and we are looking forward to young union members stepping up and taking on those roles. I do apologize to any board member if their board buddy has not contacted them, Gail Montpere especially, because you did tell me that they hadn't, and I have not looked into that yet, and I have no excuses other than being busy. So if your board member has, or if your board buddy has not contacted you, please let me know so that I can get in touch with them. We don't have anybody that's doing our organizing committee this year, so I'm also taking on that role, and that's why I'm not doing it very well, because it's just a little bit too much. I think that all of us realize, and this year I'm coming to realize as union president, that the education system that we are creating, all of us in this room, takes all of us to make it an absolutely amazing adventure and real life every day for our kids. And I really appreciate every single person who takes that really seriously to heart, that we are really creating an amazing thing here in Ukiah. And I'm glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we now have our leadership team report.
And
Mr.
we
Barrett.
have Mr. Barrett here from Pomelita Middle School, here to present.
Madam President, Superintendent Cuban, and members of the board, how are you tonight? I didn't say Madam Mother. I guess I did. But
Did you just call her a madam?
I
This
did.
is getting crazy.
I apologize for that, too. I'm sure I'll hear about that later. I wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention tonight. First of all, every chance we get, principal likes to brag about their school, and today we had an event called the Career Fair, and we had over 36 partnerships from people from the community come in. We had them lined up. Students got to choose to hear 4 15-minute talks about that career. We've been doing it for a number of years. Betty Lamson and Vera Leach, two teachers who are retiring this year, are putting, this is their last year, they put it on, they put it all together for all the 7th, 8th grade kids. And it was just tremendous. It was just a great event. We had everybody, we had airport managers, CAL FIRE, we had a florist, we had a city council member there, Fish and Game, which I heard today that my son is going to be a Fish and Game person, so that's good. A Navy navigator, restaurant manager, sheriff. That was kind of a bad experience for me because I walked in the room and it was Officer Cadillo. And I looked at him, I said, man, he's getting gray. And then I realized, wow, I coached him in football at the high school. What does that make me? Anyway, but it was a great program with a veterinarian, we had a psychologist, and we had, this year was new, we had evidence technicians when teachers or students were really excited about seeing that. CSI, yeah. So they showed them how to do fingerprinting and that kind of stuff, and the search for stuff. Anyway, it was a great event. And if you ever get a chance, maybe next year, I will send an opportunity. I know Board President Barrett came to it today, but she may have had an independent invite. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the last couple of days, a team of us went down to Los Angeles to present. And the team, we've called it the Systems Leadership Team. And we presented, there was 14 districts that were chosen basically in the state to work with people that were Jay Westover, Michael Fullen, Mary Jean Gallagher in a group, and to talk about how we can get, this is a word that Michael Fullen coined, but systemness, how we can work on systems. And the idea, it's been a 2-year journey. And we presented at the last couple of days to the other districts that were there. And we presented what we've been doing in Ukiah for the last 2 years. And it started with the idea that we really focus our goals with the LCAP. Because as you are well aware, when those first came out, they were huge. And if districts, there was 14 different districts from the size of small districts with 5 schools to 40, 50,000 kids at their districts. And an interesting fact is only 7 districts of the 14 were there on Tuesday when we presented, because half of them had had a change in superintendency. So it was kind of, whoa, that was really interesting. But so we're very lucky to have had Deb here for a long time, and I think it really helps. One of the things that my takeaways is the longevity you can have in leadership positions really helps with maintaining goals and that systemness. A couple of other just takeaways. We'd like to present, I think, hopefully, our presentation. We had 2 basic presentations. We had the district presentation, and then I was volunteered to be the focus school. And yes, so Pomelita also presented on how it's looking really from the overview of the district system to how it's working and going all the way down to the student desk. And just a couple of highlights that I know you're aware of, but what came out of this was our data collaborative, something that we worked on at the very early stages, and how we use that to get input, and we're making data-driven decisions. And it's not just the principal that's doing that. We're required to go back, and we should be, going back to the sites and asking teachers, look at this data, how can we better perform and make our students perform better? So that's a couple of other things that really are takeaways is it's helped us with clarity of goals. You're going to hear about this more, I'm sure, if we get to present. Collaboration, we really try to work on our PLCs and have collaborative expertise. And one of my mentors a long time ago kept saying, teachers just need to talk to teachers about kids. And that truth still holds to be truth today. The more we can get teachers to talk to teachers about kids and about what's happening in that kid's either life or academic life, that's how we improve what we do. So I think we also, along the way, we had our first systems leadership group. We decided to get teachers involved with it because it was important for us to start thinking, if we're going to lead from the middle, we need to make sure that we have the middle with us to help us drive, right? And so the teachers came on board with us and have been an integral part of what we do. And then, of course, you guys have been invited to our data collaboratives so that you can help make decisions based on for your decisions that you have to make at a high level on what our needs are at our school to ultimately help kids and what happens at the desk. So that's just a real brief overview of what's sort of happened with the systems leadership. But it's been, personally for me, it's been a great experience. And I think all of us that have been there, Chris was there also, and of course, Katie's there and Deb's there. It's been a real good experience for us to just sit and talk about education. And what do you think? What do you think is going to work? And do we have it perfect yet? No. We still need to work on things. We need to work and continually work and update and look at data and how we can do a better job. So it's been a fun group for me. It's been really challenging, and it's been great, a great experience. So that's my overview of the systems leadership team. Any
Could you
questions?
tell us who else is on the team besides the district people?
Katie can, because she's really good at this.
So at the elementary level, we have Kara is our principal representative, and Brian at middle school, Gordon. And then teacher level, we have Simri Thomas at Pomelita and Chris Doffett, the librarian at Ukiah High. We had one elementary teacher, but the schedule didn't work out, so we want to add more teachers. And then myself, Deb, Chris, and Jason Iverson were on the team. And then we had a bigger, so we had a team that went to this AXA collaborative, but then we had another, we would come back and meet with our other district team that also included Terry and Nicole and Penny and Dana and Barbara and the other directors, Holly. So we would come back and bring the information that we learned and then process through and come up with other plans that we had together. I'm probably missing someone on that paper.
And just another example of something that we learned from another district. We can be pretty isolated in Ukiah. And it's good for us to go out and hear other
Amen.
ideas and other things that are going on. And Santa Rosa at one time talked about how they spread the word, how they communicate. And communication is something that you could work on until you are blue in the face, and there's never enough communication. It's just something that happens. But they were having issues with trying to get from the district level to the site level in communication. And they started saying, well, they put a district person on all of the site teams, like the leadership network teams. Oh, let's do that. And we've been lucky to have Chris Miller's been on the Pomelita team, so that he sits in, listens to what we're talking about, and then he can go right back and report to the district office at the district level. Well, this is what I heard from teachers today at the Pomelita leadership team, and when, things like that. Now, we meet monthly, the Pomelita leadership team, to go over all kinds of data. We always start with data, and then we also do walkthroughs. So our leadership team at Pomelita, there's 7 of us. We do walkthroughs of the school. That's another thing that's come out of this as a real positive. So, but again, I'm looking forward to presenting to you our presentation that we did on Saturday, if we can arrange for it to go in somewhere. Or excuse me, on Tuesday we gave it. It's been a whirlwind of a couple of days.
Oh, good.
We'll get better at the presentation. I told everybody that I got up. Originally, Sembri was going to speak because she's very eloquent and very, so she wasn't able to go. She got sick. So I got up in front of everybody and said, well, Pomelita was volunteered, and naturally a good leader would then volunteer somebody else to do it, and I did that, and then they couldn't go. So now they were stuck with me to talk. So. But it all went well. Any questions?
No, I'm glad you're doing it. I'm sure it's hard to find the time, but I think you're right. It is worth it.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
really good time.
I just wanted to say I read a column in the newspaper this morning by a columnist named Friedman about the future of employment for young it was so frightening. I think of my grandchildren, and I even think of my own children. It's just the change in the field, what will be a viable employment, what will not, what skills you'll need. It was just really amazing information. Yes.
The U.S. News and World Report came out with something, I think it was last year, that the students that we have right now that are in middle school, 90% of their jobs and careers haven't been invented yet.
Yeah.
That's how fast things are changing. So,
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some donations this month. To Oak Manor School, canteen service donated $48, check for Oak Manor. Glenn Gow donated to Nokomis School a check to be used for books for the Nokomis Library in memory of Bernadette McKeon, excuse me. And Hydro Pacific donated to Nokomis and Grace Hudson soil and 50 flower pots to be used by the school's gardens to grow Mother's Day flowers. So totaling this month, our donations were $2,097.02. So can we have a motion to accept these donations?
So moved with gratitude.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we have a public hearing to approve an apportionment, and we have information on the report waiver, and I believe this is Chris Miller, so I'm going to declare us in a public hearing at this point.
Okay, so there is an apportionment report that districts are able to submit annually. It is due March 1st of each year. We received a letter after March 1st of this year stating that we should fill this out. And as I proceeded with the folks at CDE, they explained that we would have to go through a waiver process to get approved. The money in question, it's $12,000 some odd of reimbursement from that is used, it goes back to districts and is used to support needs during state and federal testing. So that is the purpose of it, and so we're required to have a public hearing and complete the waiver in order to have those funds released to us from the state.
Okay. I'd just like to add, I think, I don't know what happens with the state assessment, but for years, now, my name is still on it. And I haven't been doing this now for 6 years. And I still get the assessment stuff. And so every time I try to call somebody and say, look, you need to send this, they don't get it. So
Right.
it probably came to me. That's probably why you didn't get it.
Yeah.
Oh, so we need a motion to go along with or approve the waiver to get our money.
So moved.
I'll
Second?
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have another public hearing, and Katie Summers is going to tell us about the disposal of obsolete instructional materials, so. Start that.
Good evening. Back in March, we brought a proposal list of materials to obsolete, and then we have to post for 60 days. And now we have a public hearing on those disposal of materials. They are materials that are no longer on our adopted list. And we have gone through, like we normally do, and looked at the value of those materials. And as you can see on the board item, that we really think we would only get about $25 for the materials. So we're having a public hearing right now, and then we would like approval of obsolete of those materials. And again, we would be recycling as we've done in the past because there really is no value to them.
Okay, do we have a motion to do away with these obsolete materials?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And again, I'd really like to thank Marcia Locatelli and Veronica Mejia and other staff that have really helped work on, and staff in the warehouse with obsoleting. It's a big project to do, so really appreciate them.
Thank you. Okay, close that public hearing. All right, the next issue on the agenda is the strategic action plan. And we do have some public comment. Can we take that first?
Sure.
Okay, so before we have the public comment, I have to remind you about this. You will have 5 minutes for public comment. We ask that you state your name clearly when you address the board. Nicole Glenser will set the timer for 5 minutes. And if you've not completed your comment when the timer rings, I will immediately inform you that your time is up. You may then leave any written documents you have with the executive assistant for the board's information. Speakers are cautioned that under California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because those comments are made at a public meeting. All right, so we now have public comment from Deborah Fennessy.
Hello, Deborah, excuse me. Deborah Fennessy. I'm at Capella School. I was at Redwood Valley School. I've taught at, in our district for 22 years this year, and I know pretty much everybody, and I thank you, first of all, for everything you do, because, you know, you guys have been amazing, and I so appreciate our district. I so appreciate everything, the time you put in, these difficult decisions, and I know we've been really fortunate for the last few years to have financially a lot of freedom and a lot of extra things that, you know, have given our schools a real boost, and the teachers and all of us have felt really very fortunate and very lucky. And I know I've been on the strategic plan, and I know that the financials are getting tightened. And of course, you know, when things get tight, then there's areas we have to cut. And I am not a person that is frivolous, even though I do like spending. But I do, I'm here today because I'm on the strategic plan, and I've been on that for the last several years representing our school, which I've enjoyed, even though it's, you know, it is time spent, and it does require at night. But I think it's an important thing because it gives us a long-term plan as to what we're doing and how we're going to get there. So what I'm here for today is just to convey to you, which I know you guys have had lots of letters from our sites and from lots of teachers with concerns, and I do represent our school, and what I'm here to say is that within the strategic plan, there's 32 different areas, bullet points, and we, as the strategic plan with the district, chose the top 6. And I spoke and said, you know, there are a lot of things that are personal things that we want because we feel like it's important, like a science teacher, and we want certain things that are extras. And I believe that, you know, at this point with the tightening of monies and their constraints, it really comes down to 2 things: emotional well-being of children and the services needed to help them be successful. And I don't think anybody would disregard those things. And I'm glad to say that number 6, which is the RTI teacher, which is the resource teacher at our site, we lost our teacher. We don't lose her, she retired. I mean, I'm happy for her. But she serviced 30 students at our site. And as teachers, as principals, as parents, as people in our district, we know how important resource is reading, getting kids to read. And at the site that I'm at, we're a K-4. And the most important aspect is getting those kids to be able to be fluent. And we know that if we don't do that at a young age, what will happen? They fall behind, the gap gets bigger. But the one thing that has been a difficulty, because our district has gone from identifying children as to mainstreaming, we did that because they said we're spending way too much money and time testing, and the gap, we realize it happens more in third to find the gap, the 2-year gap before you are qualified for an IEP. So what has happened is we've changed the boundaries of how to do that. We say, we're not going to test them. We're testing too many kids. We're spending too much time. We're going to wait. And so we're going to wait till they're in 3rd grade. Well, it looks like we don't have very many kids that qualify for IEPs, individualized education plans. That's not true. Because we know that in 3rd grade, they're going to qualify. I have about 4 in my classroom right now that I know will probably qualify, out of 24, will probably qualify for an IEP later. They are not necessarily candidates for retention. There's lots of circumstances, and I don't have time to talk about those. As teachers, I know you know that, and principals, I know you know those. But the thing is this, we have to deal with servicing them, their services, RTI. We have to give them reading intervention. And since we're not testing them, we have to still provide services. So there's 30 kids that are dibbled and assessed as having learning difficulties and not being where they are not gone. They're at our site. And we cannot allow those children not to be served. And to put the idea is to put this person up at the high school, that's great. Give them somebody at the high school. They need it. I know. They're falling behind. Their gap has gotten so big. These kids are still needing services at junior high and high school. But if we don't service them in elementary, we will see more in junior high. We'll see more in high school. So I'm just, make sure when you look at those 32 points, and number 6 did get 5. It's tied with 5, which shows there's an importance there. We have to do that. We need to keep supporting our kids at all of our sites. And I don't think any school would ever function without a resource person. And I'm not used to 5 minutes. I'm used to 3. I was getting a little bit nervous filling the time. Anyway, thank you. I do appreciate it. And I'm very tired tonight, so I'm probably not going to stay for too much longer. But
Thank you.
Deborah.
Thank you. Okay. So next, we need to talk just a little bit about how we're going to do this tonight. All of you have the strategic plan discussion framework. So the first thing that we will do is determine if there's any programs, services, or concepts that are not on draft 2 or the strategic plan worksheet that you would like to bring up for discussion this evening. So if you have something that's not on the draft 2 of the plan or on this strategic plan worksheet, would you let us know that at this point? Okay, Ann?
I had a question about furniture. I saw that we had the facilities people here, and they showed us some pictures, and it was so interesting to see the new ideas that they had. And I saw furniture on this one as being a possibility. Add funding for collaborative classroom furniture. And I didn't know if that's what it was, or, okay.
It is. It's furniture that would support configurations that make for collaborative conversations with kids. And there are a couple of classrooms that we've done in the district. There's one at Pomelita that, the teachers can actually, the furniture components can be moved around.
Right.
So they can put them in groups or not. So yes, that is what this one is.
Okay, in that case, I have nothing else to say about this because we'll get to it as we go on that line then. The other thing I wanted to know about then was, I know that recently we increased janitorial and landscaping. I still don't think it's enough. Is that on here somewhere?
That is not on there somewhere. It's in the plan, what we've already approved, but not increasing it.
And did we fill those spots that we allocated? Because maybe they just weren't filled, and that's why I didn't notice.
We've had difficulty filling custodial positions all year long. But
Okay.
when we are fully staffed, it's helpful. But we have had difficulty all year long keeping those positions filled. We also were for a short period of time down a grounds person. I don't know if we have that filled yet. Yes, we do. So we were down a grounds person because we had somebody move into maintenance. So, yes, that is the answer. The biggest challenge, though, this year has been in the area of custodial.
Okay, when's the last time we did a salary study to make sure that those custodial positions are properly paid? I might be using the wrong words. But you know what I mean? Like sometimes things get out of whack over time.
They're not part of the study that's being done yet, and I don't remember if they're next. We're gonna do them in the fall.
Oh, great.
They're in the next group of people that we're going to study.
Fabulous. Okay, thank you. And then I was also worried that we were wondering whether or not we're putting enough resources toward roach prevention. I don't know how all this water is going to affect it, but is there anything extra that we need to allocate this summer so that we're keeping everything down?
Yes, we do.
And is that in the plan somewhere?
I believe
Or
it's
if
in the,
not,
I
then
believe it's in the general fund, as it was funded this past year.
Yeah, no, we put money in SAR, so we have money funded in operations for it right now, which I believe will be sufficient to keep us on track for where we are. And that's our IPM.
Following that action plan?
Exactly.
You have enough resources to implement that action plan?
I believe we do, unless they brought in some of their buddies, so we'll see.
Never underestimate the buddy system. Okay, thank you.
So, any other items?
These are things not on,
Either
Right.
one.
to add for consideration. Not for second.
Okay, so since there are none, we'll go on to step 2. Is there anything in draft 2, but not on the worksheet, that you would like to oppose or bring forward for further discussion? So we're looking at things in the plan, but not on this worksheet. So Megan, you have something?
Sorry, I'm bringing forward something not to oppose, but to bring forward for further discussion. The gate position that we allocated $100,000 to, I'm not sure if this was explicit when we first started this, but my understanding was that in the beginning years, getting the testing process back up to speed was going to take some time. But we're now in a place where the testing process should be more streamlined and only happening at one grade, and it's not the catch-up system that we used to have. And I'm not hearing from gate parents, of which I am not one, so this is not about me, that they're seeing the changes in the classroom that they had anticipated. And I know that we had planned to have gate clusters and differentiate in the classroom. I totally understand the teachers have an enormous amount going on. They have a new math curriculum, they have new science standards coming up, they've got a lot of competing priorities. But I do wonder if it's time to make sure that we're getting the benefit from that investment that we had hoped for.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
Would you like to add it, or do you want me to just respond to it real quick?
I don't even know if you need to add, I don't know if it's, I
Okay.
don't know if it's something where you, I can't remember whether we were supposed to have reports on
We
gate
are
from time to time.
putting a report together right now. It'll not be in tomorrow's TGIF, but it will be in the next Friday's TGIF.
Okay, and is it a report on what's going on? Do you feel like there's a discussion about if we need to relook at that investment and how it best could be handled, or is that?
I think in the fall, that would be a good discussion to have for the following year. But I'd love to be able to share with the board what's been accomplished this year through our report that we have now twice annually, not twice annually, 2 years in a row, we've given this report to the board. So we'd like to update the board with our numbers, with the demographics, and then with all the training that has happened this year, everything that has been accomplished.
Okay. I think it's important that, if we're claiming that we're making an investment, that the parents are able to see that. So I hope that that starts to happen.
Got it.
So, are you satisfied with that?
I'm satisfied.
Okay.
My follow-up while we're on gate is, when you do your report, could you also mention whether or not they're getting enough volunteer staff to still do Odyssey of the Mind? Some of them age out, shall we say? And age out because of the age of their children, not because of their age.
I see.
Oh, is somebody a little paranoid? So, because I've always thought those people need a stipend. They drive, they buy supplies, and it's not that it's ever gonna really reward them, but just $150 to acknowledge everything they take out of their pocket, and that won't even cover it. So, so I would love for that to be considered, although I don't necessarily need a vote on the plan.
All right, is there anything else that's? Okay,
I
good.
just, my perennial question, and thank you for sending the summer school information again. I just had a couple more questions about summer school. If I'm reading the data correctly, it said that actually 24% of the students increased their scores. But it talked about 41% maintain, the benchmark is where we want them to be, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So it said 41% maintained at or above the benchmark. And I guess I was surprised by that because I thought summer school was meant to be serving the children who were below grade level and the neediest children. So I'm curious that almost half were at benchmark already. I just don't understand the program then.
Sure. So our summer school, the supplemental concentration grant portion of that focuses on students that are struggling, but we also have migrant ed students there as well, and we have to service all those students, and many of them are not struggling academically, but they participate in the program.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, and then sometimes students are also, I mean, we focus on English language arts, but we also look at math. So sometimes we have students that are struggling with math. We just don't, we don't have as much, they focus on one standard and they work on that standard, so we didn't report on that. We just looked at the
And there also
tables.
seem to be very strange variance at grade levels, and I was just curious if we're looking at that.
Yeah,
noticed
the,
that
the
too.
way we do the applications is we look at the number of migrant students that are at the site, because we do have to serve all the migrant students, and then we look at the total number of teachers. Really, it's the classrooms too that limit that. And we really haven't been full yet, so we're usually good about the size that we have. And then we try to estimate an equal, fair number of students that are non-migrant. So each site gets slightly different numbers. It's about 50 to 75 students for each site that we allocate slots. But here's the other thing. We're on the second round of recruitment because we're not full. We're always recruiting at the last minute, and so sometimes too,
For
that's.
teachers.
For students.
For students.
So sometimes that also then, you might get a few more kids at one site than another site than what we had allocated.
Okay. All right. I also wanted to congratulate Mr. Barrett because I believe Pomelita, it said, had almost 100% attendance right to the end, and that's to be commended.
It's a great program, the teachers there, and it's going to be really exciting this year as well. It's had a STEM focus. So they do ELA and math, and then last year they did art, and then she flipped and did coding, and then they did MESA, and then they flipped and did coding. So it was really neat.
I'll go.
I know. It's wonderful.
And
I totally forgot my question. My question was something about summer school. Oh, I'm embarrassed. Never mind.
You'll remember.
all right. Board members, are there
Wait, I think
any,
he's got one more.
any other items that are not in the strategic workshop plan?
May I add one more?
Worksheet. Yes.
This is kind of a repeat, but is typing anywhere?
Oh, no, the typing question.
This is an opportunity for us to do some serious planning for some important stuff. I think typing might fall in that. We had the discussion last month, and I was wondering.
Over and over again. I second that. If there's money that needs to be done, please.
I agree, typing.
Yeah.
Are we adding number 34, typing?
You mean as something to discuss?
Yes.
Let's
Okay.
talk about typing.
All right, it's added.
Okay.
Anything else?
Oh, I know. It was just a hint that there's a lot of great articles about the summer slide, and getting that information at a 6th grade reading level out to all parents might help. And I would also put it in El Punto.
Okay. All right, we will move along now to step 3. So we're looking at the strategic plan worksheet. Which ones would you like to have further discussion on for modification or opposition?
Just to
Yes.
review with everyone, on the grid, the ones that say yes by them actually appear in draft number 2. So number 5, which is more funding for Chromebook replacement, is in draft number 2. More social emotional counseling at Ukiah High School is in draft number 2. Additional support at Oak Manor related to a behaviorist is in draft number 2. Providing after-school in-home tutoring for foster students, number 30, that is in draft number 2. And then allocating funding for facilities projects. Although listed there as $500,000, we don't have $500,000. So whatever is remaining has been put into draft number 2 for facilities projects. So just whatever was left, we put in. You'll see it in 18, 19, and 19, 20.
Okay, so which ones would you like to discuss further? Megan?
I'd like to circle number 6, number 10, number 14, and then there's like a bunch of Oak Manor stuff together, so just the concept of Oak Manor, which seems to be 15, 16, 17. But that's really one item in my mind, because it's like all combined. 22, 25, 31, and 34, typing. I'm circling it.
All right. Anyone else?
I'd like some clarification on number 11. And I didn't mark the ones Megan had said, so I may just repeat them. Number 14.
Okay, that's.
Okay, just tell me, I'm sorry, I didn't think she'd have so many.
Sorry, some of them are not, we don't have to ramble on about all of them. Just-
And, I wanted to just discuss 29.
29?
I don't know if she did that one. Okay.
Okay. Any others?
I've got 24 and 33.
We might as well just circle them all.
We could go with negative as we go down the list.
Gail, you came up with something?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Okay.
mean to do that.
Anyone else? Okay. So we will now go through each one that's circled. And so we will start with number 6, hire additional teachers to provide RTI intervention.
I think I know the answer to this, but in respect to our speaker who advocated so well for her site, I just want to clarify with you, Deb, my understanding is that with allocation of resource teachers is done, special ed resource teachers is done according to how many special ed students are identified?
That's how most districts do it, yes.
And is that how we do it?
That is how we do it now,
Okay.
yes.
And every site also has a reading teacher on top of that, right? We funded that.
That's correct.
And so the elementary schools should be, they're somewhat fairly, I mean, is that the intention? That from the district level, they're allocated according to the number of special ed students you have identified in your school, and everyone gets a reading teacher on top of that? And then
Yeah.
there's some sites spend their own money on resource
Yes,
teachers? Okay.
yes. And we do a little higher of an allocation. So a caseload for resource is 28 to 1, 28 students to 1.
28 special ed students, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay,
That is a typical caseload for resource teachers.
okay.
And so when, in the elementary schools, we know as the year goes on, they'll likely identify a few more students during the year. So we've allocated, we've accommodated for that as well in their allocation. Additionally, in our district, the district has chosen to use Title I funds to supplement elementary schools' resource teacher program. In most cases, each elementary school has a half-time out of Title I funds. Calpella has a .75 because they have more primary students. Grace Hudson for a long time had 0, but we fixed that through supplemental concentration grant funding. So we look at the number of special ed kids. So for example, for resource kids, so if a school has 7 resource kids, that would be a .25 special education teacher. We do put in a little bit for growth in there during the school year, so we might bump it up to a half, and then they get an additional half or .75 through Title I funding. It's different than how it used to work.
Okay, and then just to clarify, I mean, I'm wanting to understand if the same practices across all the schools across the district. Our speaker referenced that typically we're not identifying kids as special ed in the area of reading perhaps until 3rd grade, because that would be when they were 2 years behind. Is that the practice for all of the sites?
Katie, do you want to talk?
So yeah, the practice is that we try not to identify students for special ed until we can see that we've provided interventions and supports, and so you have to give that time.
So that means a student would be getting intervention in 1st and 2nd grade, but
Yes.
not
Correct.
identified as special ed perhaps until 3rd grade?
Correct.
Correct.
Does that mean that no special ed teachers are working with 1st and 2nd graders?
No.
No, they might be providing some intervention support. So if they don't have so for example, if a school has 4 resource students and they have a full-time resource teacher funded through Title I and special ed funding,
They're not just going to be seeing 4
they're
kids?
not going to just see 4, they'll do small group instruction for students as well, to try to keep them out of special ed. That is our goal.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
I just wanted to ask some, this is very hard for me because I've been through that system and I know it's effective. And I just am wondering overall, I have always felt, as do most teachers, that waiting until 3rd grade is late, and that since students should be reading by 3rd grade, at grade level by 3rd grade, that I can say for almost all my colleagues, we have always felt that this avoidance of labeling them as special ed sometimes works for the detriment of the student. And I don't know if we have data to support that. I guess I just feel that if these students are struggling, not just at Calpella, but at all of the schools, that I just have seen in some of the workshops I've been to at school board and everything, that other school districts are adding more resources to those first 3 years with the hope that they will not be, even if they're not labeled special ed by 3rd grade, that they will be closer to being at grade level by 3rd grade. And I just wonder if we shouldn't be doing some of that as well. I know we have the reading teachers, I know we have some intervention, But I also know that sometimes that intervention is, 20 minutes a day, or, it's not that intense intervention that some of these students might need. So that's my thought.
The other thing that we have not decided yet is Pomelita has, they were allocated 2 reading teachers, and they determined that they really would rather see their second reading teacher be at an elementary school. And we have not yet decided where we're going to place that reading teacher position. We need to do it soon. And my thinking is if there's a proposal in here for Oak Manor to get a behaviorist, if that happens, we can look at where to put that additional reading teacher. And it could be at Calpella.
How is that related to the behaviorist?
Because Oak Manor is being proposed to get more resources based on needs that they have identified related to behavior. And so, originally we were looking at maybe putting the reading teacher at Oak Manor, but maybe, we just need to look at it. That's a resource that we haven't determined where it's going to go yet, is my point. And it may be that we could put that person at Calpella.
Or we could swap it out for number 14.
We could do endless possibilities, Megan.
Well, it certainly appears to me that the person who came and was most eloquent and charming should certainly be.
Hard not to reward charming.
I'm really interested to see if our reading scores, because I hear what you're saying, Gail, and we did invest several $1 million, I think, if we look at reading specialists, maybe it was only $1 million. It was a lot in the reading, an extra reading teacher, and if we're not seeing the benefits from that we're expecting, which I'm hoping we're going to see this upcoming season, we do have to really look at that. But I'm content to see this year's scores, and if it's showing the improvement we're expecting, we can either invest more money in that or give it more time to grow. Including at Calpella, I'll be interested to see. I don't really like to experiment with schools, but it'll be interesting to see if, they're able to sustain the same growth as the rest of the school districts, the rest of the school sites.
That brings up the issue of when we get scores in August, what if we find something really important that we think $200,000 or 2 teachers or whatever it might be is really going to help us improve? Would we have to wait until the whole next year? I kind of want a reserve pot that says this is our rapid action response to whatever we find from that data that we get in August. Not that we throw everything out with the baby with the bathwater or change our direction, but just some things that we might be able to use to shift.
You could set aside, we did have a reserve this year.
Teachers, yeah.
My only concern is if we're trying to hire teachers in August, it is very difficult to find quality teachers in August. That would be my only concern, Ann, if we're saving a lot of money for August, so.
Yeah, if we know we need them, that's great. It would just be if there was some special response we wanted to make to the data.
Yes.
But I can see why then we might end up with people who weren't quite as desirable.
Correct.
I just want to say, in response to Megan, I know it always seems like such an enormous amount of money, but when you realize that one reading teacher in a Title I school, or whatever you want to call it, you're really dealing with half of a school that needs to be served. And having done reading groups when I was a consultant after I retired, I saw 6 groups a day, and there were still waiting lists, and that was in addition to the resource teacher and other people, but there were usually one of us consultants there every single day, and, no, actually 2. And there were still children who did not get to be seen. So it's an endless pit. But I just think that what we know is that comprehension, lack of reading comprehension is what really stymies our children, and if they're still struggling with phonetics, they're not really paying attention to comprehension, and they really have to have that comprehension and the vocabulary and everything down before they go into 3rd and 4th grade is the killer always. And so I just want to make my point for the little people.
Okay. So, what do you want to do with number 6? Do we need to, vote on this item? Whether,
I'm not proposing for vote, it's just a discussion.
just for discussion? Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, so then we will move on to number 10, provide more social emotional counseling at UHS, one counselor.
This item has come up in multiple venues from the Ukiah High School students talked about this. All of the data in our staff feedback talks about the need for more counseling support. So that is why this one is in there. There's just not enough social emotional counseling in our district. So, and the kids spoke very eloquently about the need. I think now that they've had a social emotional counselor at the high school, they see the value and they feel like they need more.
Tyler?
Start over again. Was this counselor position supported by the teachers as well?
It came up, so you can see how it ranked in both DAC and leadership. It was number 2. And there are teachers on DAC.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I will say on this one, and we may want to have a backup plan, we recently submitted a Proposition 47 grant, and in it, we have written in a counselor into that grant. So if we get funded, which we will not know until the end of June, we'll need to assess my feeling is we probably need 2, but, you know, that could be an area the board could slide in an alternative action or item in case we don't need 2.
And that's on the strategic plan, on page 35, that's why there's an asterisk next to the 100,000, and that we kept it separate, so that if we do get that grant, and we had put, looking at facilities and collaborative classroom furniture, so that's at that very end, we put a little asterisk to note that.
Okay. Right, Ann?
I guess I'm in favor of 2. Having a high schooler and having had a high schooler and seeing how all those kids, I think it's much more difficult to be in high school today than it was when any of us were there, even Stephanie. I think we're at this time where it's getting harder and harder and harder. And I think it's a little misleading that we call counselors at the high school counselors when in fact, when they're only academic. That's what. So I'm actually in favor of 2 full-time counselors added to Ukiah High. And I also would like to throw in the fact that although confidentiality can be difficult when you're young, I think it's really important that they do groups, because groups are shown to be just as effective as one-on-one counseling, and you get to see 6 times as many kids.
I was curious too. I just wanted to clarify. So I agree with Ann. When you say counselor, you're talking about academic counselors who deal only with scheduling and all of that.
That's not what this is.
I know. And then assistant principals do no counseling. They just do other stuff. So there's one person who's doing emotional counseling.
One
counselor.
person whose official title is to do emotional counseling, yes,
Good way to
social
put it.
emotional counseling.
But so many
Adrienne
teachers do
Turcotte.
it all the time, yeah.
Okay.
And some of our deans do some, but not like Adrienne, her full focus, and she also serves South Valley.
Oh, goodness.
But I just want to agree with Ann. I was going to ask about group counseling. I think that is important, that, because you can't serve all of those students with even 2, so.
Yeah. Now, would you agree that maybe 2 are even a good idea?
2 additional ones?
Yes. Instead of just the one that's allocated here?
It's just hard when it's one or the,
Right, you'd have to take something away. However, we could say that if we get the grant, we're going to leave both.
I don't really want us to get into the point of we have to take something away right now. I'd rather, I think we're going to have that argument every time we want something. I'd rather rank them at the end then and say what we're going to do.
Can I propose something?
Megan?
Related to this topic? I've been wondering, as we add more staff on, I start to question the contracted services that we had. And like, at some point, I feel like when we add more staff on, I'm wondering, shouldn't we go back and evaluate the contracted staff we have? So I know we still put a lot of money into contracted, not our employee counselors to do something. And I think I was told before they were working with special ed students. Now I think we're being told they're working with Eagle Peak. But I do wonder if we're adding more permanent employees, which would be a good way to go if we can reduce those contracts. And I'm just wondering if that's a way to, in the funding allocation. My understanding is you're going to hear about this grant pretty soon.
We just submitted it, I think it was due today, May 10th.
But it's intended for next
It is
school year,
intended
right?
for next
So-
school year, yes.
Anyway, I just bringing that up. I do continue to question. I mean, we had 2 contracted or 3 I don't know what we had. We had some contracted therapists. We've added 8 counselors, and we still have the need for that contracted therapist. It just starts to surprise me
So
a
there
little
are
bit.
2 pieces to it. One is the special ed piece. So what is required in students' IEPs for counseling services, that's separate, that's not in this plan. That is funded through special education funding. Those are NPS, non-public school counselors. So that's different.
Okay.
And then we also have $50,000 allocated of supplemental concentration grant funding for contracts. A piece of that goes to UISA, and we contract out with the
Youth Project.
Youth Project. And then at Eagle Peak this year, due to some personnel issues, we kept our contract with the Youth Project there as well to provide social emotional counseling. And the plan is to do that still next year.
Deborah, don't we also have some contracted counselors who submit bills to Medicaid?
Those are
And we
our
get reimbursed.
special ed, those are our NPA special ed counselors.
But are there not some, if you're on Medicaid, aren't you entitled to get social emotional services? Can't you? I thought we had some counselors at Calpella that billed, and the money did not come out of the district fund, general fund.
It's probably through special education.
We did have, I think the Christine Price.
Right, and
So-
she's associated with all of that. Her
Right.
group is associated with all of the counseling that goes on for our special education students.
So the question is, are there students who would qualify because they have a diagnosis of, more likely than not, anxiety or depression, who we could be billing for, who we're not billing for right now? Either through private insurance or through Medi-Cal?
I don't know the answer to that.
Sure. The answer is yes.
Fair.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We should be doing that.
So maybe it would be worth a $10,000 or $20,000 contract just to learn how to bill and to figure that out, so that then we could do it in perpetuity.
I thought we did do that in the past.
No, we
I
didn't,
know we
but
did. I know I had
Stephanie-
children who received services from from Susan Vega and some other counselors, and they were not special ed students, they were because I know there were other times when I tried to get services for children, and I could not because they didn't qualify for Medicaid. What is Medi-Cal or Medicaid? Medi-Cal, right?
So we're part of a consortium with MCOE. Debbie Rotero helps support us in that area, but it's certainly an area that we can do better in terms of Medi-Cal billing.
Excuse me.
Tyler and then B.
So back to number 10. What I would like to propose is that we do support number 10, that if the money comes from the grant, then at that time we can decide whether we'd like to put on a second counselor at Ukiah High School, or use that money in place of number 10 and use this $100,000 for something else. So as it stands in the plan is what I'd like to support.
Okay.
Did that?
B.
Actually, that was my question to Ann. Did she want to add another, I'm more comfortable with what Tyler just put out, but I was wondering, Did you want, is that what you want to do, is just add another 100,000?
Well, I would have, my preference is to hire 2 social emotional counselors, because I think 2 is always more
Instead.
effective than 1.
Okay.
And I mean, I think it's more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that at the end of the day, we would find
Some
$100,000 for it, if no place else, from the E-rate that we now know is overbilled.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So do we want to vote on this, whether we leave it as is at $100,000 until we find out about the grant and then make a further decision? Or do you want to change this to $200,000 and take out some money somewhere else, or what's your pleasure?
I feel like the night is still young, and this is the
Yeah,
only,
it is.
this is the only item, well, number 2 on our list. So, it sounds like, Deb, you're gonna hear from this grant in enough time to make a hiring decision. So I think that the question point is, if we don't get the grant, what do we do? And we're not there yet. So I'm not sure, I feel like we need to preemptively backfill yet, because I think we would have time to do it, and we might have a little bit more information about the full complement of social emotional counseling needs that we have. I continue to question the consultants, but we're bringing that up now. You may not have had time to really go back and look at all of the different pieces, but we have invested a lot of money into social emotional counseling, so much that I can't even keep it straight in my head. Like, I don't really, there's a lot. And as we make further investments, we need to make sure the ones we did are working out the way we had planned.
Right. Yes.
So that wasn't very helpful, but I'm not quite ready to,
No, it was.
to commit to the backfill of the grant we don't know about yet, right
Yeah.
now. But I might by the end of the night, I don't know.
I agree with you. It's my opinion, so.
And Deborah, is this the same grant we had submitted previously, or is this a different
No,
grant?
it's a new grant.
A new grant? And we never, I thought that other grant we had submitted was, we weren't going to resubmit because there was going to be a second round of awards. Did that ever happen?
That was the elementary counseling grant, and
Oh.
no, it did not ever happen.
Oh.
The funding didn't come out again.
Okay.
So this is funding that was created from savings from Proposition 47, where they did early release of prisoners.
Oh.
And the savings from that is being allocated in multiple ways. One of them is to K-12 schools in the form of a grant for truancy reduction and suspension and expulsion reduction. So.
I don't want to belabor this, but I do also remember, at another time, I think we should talk about the grant concept when the district, puts in for a fairly significant grant that is about some of the goals that we have. Because I do also remember that the way you described that grant, it was a complement to the new cop that we hired to do truancy, and they were going to be the person who had the community resources and had the non-cop skills to complement that. If we don't get this grant, then we just have the cop and not the non-cop part, which is a problem. And so I just put that out there for us to consider.
The other thing is, I'm not sure the complementary person to the police officer needs to be a certificated counselor. I think it could be a family and community liaison or
That's
something
also in the
else,
grant.
too.
That is in the grant,
As well, okay.
yes.
So, which again brings up that if we don't get the grant, there's a number of things that weren't funded in the grant, including the family community liaison and that you just mentioned. So,
Okay.
so there would be, there's some backfilling that may need to be considered if the grant's not achieved.
And somewhat along the same line, I've asked before about, because there was just a fabulous article in the, I shouldn't read the paper, the Santa Rosa Press Democrat about the restorative justice program that now begins at the early elementary grades, as it does in many districts now. And I know we were going down that road, but I haven't heard anything about that or seen anything about.
There's some comments in the strategic plan report that's on the agenda. That's, Jason was discussing that there's some more training that's going to be happening. So it's in that report.
Okay.
All right, moving along.
Are we going to take a vote on that, or are we?
Do you want to vote on
I'd like to go.
10 or leave as is? Excuse me?
I would rather wait. Yeah, because I think It's hard to make a decision.
Is that the consensus that we'll wait? Okay, I think that's
Are we
what I
waiting
got.
till the end, or are we waiting?
No, I think we're waiting till we see about the grant and see what happens.
Oh, not about the, I don't, about the one that's on here? I thought we were, the additional one is what we were
The
waiting to
additional.
hear about
Oh,
the grant.
okay, I just didn't know if we're taking votes on these ones that say yes. Does the board support what we put into draft 2, so when we bring it back to you in June, it's pretty close to how you want it?
Well, we all seem fine with the yes for the one, right? It's the grant-funded number 2 that we're kind of quibbling about.
And I thought, number 6, anything that's been discussed and we've moved along, we would be approving. them.
Okay, that was for all uncircled items, though, and this one is
Okay.
circled. So I thought we were, when we go, on step 4, when we go through each circled item, and vote if needed.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so do we have a motion to leave number 10 as is, to provide one social emotional counselor at this time at Ukiah High?
I so move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We're going to vote. Might as well post it.
Okay, number 11. Did you get the?
So my question was, and this was not totally clear at the DAC meeting, people, provide funding for academic clubs and activities. When I saw that, I'm thinking, I've always felt that just as other people get stipends, that the person who does the debate team, if there is one, or other things like that, should also receive a stipend for the time they put in. And is, what, I'm just, as I'm asking, is, are there stipends for those clubs? Because this implied to me that maybe there weren't.
Brian, you could probably talk about that.
So,
Yeah, good.
really the only stipends that are in, that the teachers get are by contract. So in the back of the UTA agreement, there are stipends listed on there.
Oh.
Anything over and above that would come out of site funds.
And it
So-
would be hourly pay, it would
And it
not
would
be
be
a
hourly
stipend.
pay, so it wouldn't be a stipend, exactly right.
Oh, I don't have that, I'm not familiar with that page, so, but, so
So-
if you have a debate, what clubs do you have that might
So
qualify for a
like I
stipend?
have the Science Olympiad Club. Now, out of my site funds, I pay an hourly rate for 2 people to head that.
Okay,
So I think what the idea here is that, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but is that there are clubs that don't have that, and to make it more cemented, or I don't know what the word would be, but
Consistent.
consistent among, right. How much do you pay at the middle school? How much do you pay at the high school? Those kind of things for clubs. So whatever that hourly rate with a maximum, whether it's $1,500 or something
so
like that.
this would go toward achieving that goal?
Yes, to make it
Okay,
very
because
consistent.
that was not really clear at the meeting, and I think that's something that we should do. I think we should encourage all aspects of, for students, no matter what their interests are, and not just a certain group.
Deb?
The thinking was also, those clubs often need supplies. The robotics club, for example, they needed robots. And so this funding, they could access through this. Now, we did use some gate funding to be able to support both the Science Olympiad and the robotics club. So, anyway, there was a little bit there that we could dig into.
And gate funding was used for Odyssey of the Mind for supplies, but that was capped by the Odyssey of the Mind organization. It's $125. So that didn't include anything else that I spent, but that's okay, I just donated it.
What about mock trial? It's not, is it called mock trial?
It is.
I'll try that.
I'm not aware if the.
I
There
think
is
there's a
Is
stipend
that
on the back page.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
that takes a lot of time.
Is it in the contract?
I think it might be.
It is.
I think so too.
So if anybody else were to support this, then other people who, are not now getting a stipend could apply for or begin the process of having a stipend for that service?
Just the leadership discussion, they talked about how a lot of this is site-funded, site-driven, and so leadership didn't rank it as high.
I'm not sure how to take that statement. They may think that, but my point of view is if you're trying to encourage alternatives for students, other things that might interest them, if you don't offer something, then you have to wait until somebody decides it might be like a debate club. It might be nice to have. And I think those are other academic activities are important for a well-rounded student.
I would certainly be in favor of it, Gail, because I think there's a direct line between 25,000 here and our ADA. If you have a reason to go to school when you're not really into those academics, maybe, it's great to have your club.
Just to understand here, it sounds like, though, the leadership, the few votes that it got was because they didn't want to have to use their site funds for it. It's not that teachers are not being paid, it's that they would rather have their site funds not used for it. Am I right? I mean, it sounds like everybody who wants to be paid to do something is being paid.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Is that what's going on?
I believe that there's not a uniformity from site to site. So I think that's one of the concerns. But that's
So
something that.
you pay anyone who wants to do something special?
Yes, I do.
Okay, out of your own site funds?
Yes.
The joy of having 850 ADA.
So I can see the issue in that we would not want the lack of paying an hourly rate to be the barrier to a teacher not doing something joyful for students. But if that's not the barrier, then that's not, I don't know what the barrier is. Is the barrier they don't want to do it, or is the barrier that the principal won't fund them out of their site funds? I'm willing to solve the problem, but I don't know what the barrier is.
Could be both.
Right, it could be both.
Probably is both.
You know, I'm wondering would it be possible to get a list of the activities that are offered after school at the high school and at the middle schools, and what stipends are attached to them? And then if we see something that might be worthwhile, we could add that in June? Would that be a possibility?
I just want to address that the high school does not have after-school funding like elementary schools and like I have also. So in the past, I have done Odyssey of the Mind out of a stipend for Odyssey of the Mind out of ACES, the after-school funding. I don't use that for like the current one. Right now, I use the 0079 or supplemental funding, SCG money to pay for the other stipends. We have a number of stipends at our school for teachers.
Right, I guess when I went to high school, which was eons ago, those were all traditional. Debate club, the drama club, there were all kinds of things that people got stipends to spend time developing interest. So I guess I'm just asking, do we no longer think, if nobody else thinks this is worth any conversation, I'm happy to drop it.
I don't know if it would increase the number of after-school activities, I don't know if it would increase the number of activities or just pay some teachers for activities they're currently doing. I think that's the question, because if it's not going to increase it, and at Pomelita, everyone who wants to do something is, I'm not sure what the money would be for.
So just to address, I see that Nicole has, Ms. Glenzer has the page up on the contract.
Oh.
So there are drama stipends, so it starts with the coaching stipends basically, but it goes into other things that I think, right, that are on that.
I actually don't see academic decathlon.
I don't think it's on there either, but I'm not sure.
We can't see it? Come on.
What I see on here for non-athletic stipends are ag teacher, annual, band director, choral, class sponsor, department chairs, drama director, journalism, lead band director, and student activity director, annual band director, choir. Oh, and then at the middle school, it repeats some of those.
But those are related to courses that are offered at the school.
Ag, band, choral, drama, activities, student
journalism.
activities.
There used to, actually, we did have an academic decathlon, and this has been a battle with the union for years about why should some people get stipends for doing things, and there are other equally important things, and teachers don't get stipends, and the person who was doing the academic decathlon stopped because it was so much work and there was no stipend. So I think the academic decathlon is a very important thing. I think debate teams are important, and that's all.
May I make a comment? The idea of equality has come up a couple times, and I think it's really important for us to recognize with this particular topic that we're discussing and other things that come up, is all of our sites are a little bit different, and they're not all gonna be equal. And I think it's okay that we just need to realize that just because Pomelita is doing something, the high school doesn't have to be exactly like it, or Eagle Peak, sorry, Dan. Eagle Peak doesn't have to be exactly like all the rest of them. It doesn't seem to me that there is a whole lot of support for this. The other thing that I heard is that currently things are getting funded, whether it's through the GATE program or through the principals. I don't feel real strong support for this myself.
That's fine.
B, I was gonna say that, for a long time, they had taken out all the stipends, as you were talking about, Gail. And as we had more money and interest, both by students and teachers and parents, things started getting refunded. And most of the programs are funded, and I remember being on lots of SSCs where, and Carol would know too, is we as parents and teachers, we made choices on what we wanted to have and pay for on our campus. And most of them are paid for, and now, they were not for a while. But I don't see it as a big issue unless I don't see programs being neglected for lack of funds. I think it has to do more with lack of kids interested in it. It's pretty amazing when they're interested, they get together and they figure out how to do it one way or another. And so for this amount of money, unless I'm missing something or somebody says something.
So you think a group of kids get together and decide they're going to be in the academic decathlon, they can do that on their own?
I do think if there's a teacher interest or some interest in there, that it will happen. You know, the teacher or principal, whatever.
All right.
Okay, Anne?
Well, I guess I would just ask that there be, that we put it out to students and teachers. If this is an interest, maybe it's not gonna happen this year, but I would love to hear if people have had, dying needs that they've really wanted to do, but they can't afford the extra childcare without the stipend or something. If there's some interest, I'd love to hear about it, but I'm certainly willing to wait until next year.
I agree with Ann. I can't tell if this is a money issue or something else. So if, and maybe Deb, there's some way to get that information to the board, is if putting a small amount of money would encourage additional, extracurricular activities that teachers are willing and interested in doing, I would be willing to put that money in there, but I can't tell if it's a money issue or not.
All right, so shall we move on?
I'll leave it alone. Okay.
Okay, do you want to take a break, or do you want to keep? Want to vote on that budget?
Oh, no, because it's a no.
It was a no.
Okay.
Okay. You want to take a break? Okay. We'll take a 10-minute break. Additional art teacher at Pomelita.
I circled this one. I like it.
Me too.
And maybe this isn't our call to make, but if they don't need the reading teacher and they want our art teacher, can't we just let them switch it up?
All right.
Deb's got candy in her mouth, doesn't really know what to say, thinking it through. I guess my thought was Eagle Peak is all STEM-like right now. Pomelita's always sort of had a strong interest in RD type stuff, and it sounds like an opportunity to strengthen their arts program and be an art place.
Okay, speak up.
I like the idea of being an art place, I really do. So this really has to do a lot with scheduling. Because if I added another art teacher, I would be taking away from band and Mesa and that kind of stuff. Art sections are full. We have a wonderful art teacher. I hope the high school doesn't steal her. But she is wonderful. But the sections are all full. So if I add another one, then it has to come from somewhere. There's only a certain amount of electives. So that means we would be taking away from other electives that I'm trying to push and build for the high school, like band and choir. The MESA program, where we had three sections last year. We have one this year because I recognized it's taking away from other electives. So it's a constant balancing act when you're looking at electives and what to offer students. You like the variety, right? To give kids the option to learn about different things so they can pursue that in high school and college and the rest of their life. At the same time, you have to say, I want to make sure that we're able to provide those electives for other things. So as much as I like the idea of Pomelita getting things, in this case, I think that we have adequate, and I know it seems like I'm giving up a reading teacher, but we also are adding 40 seats for the Read 180, and we're having a special ed teacher teach that. So we weren't really getting rid of a reading teacher. We're using basically our special ed teacher to do half of what a reading teacher would do next year. And currently, we're out of space. We have no place to put.
So this is a really long way of saying you don't actually want the art teacher.
I am saying that I love the idea, and I
Quite say
appreciate
that.
those people
It's hard for him to say that.
that have. Yes, I think that I like the idea of being arts because I like the idea of giving options to people, but it would be very difficult to have that.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would just like to add to that I really appreciate what's happening with the choral group, with Mr. Small being at Pomelita and the high school, and building on a program. I just talked with him about this because I'm going to write about him next time, about the choral program.
Good idea.
But I really appreciates what's happening, and he says, oh yeah, this Pomelita's building my high school program. And the same thing's happening with band. So I don't want to see anything happen to music.
B, I just want to say, Brian, thank you for your honesty. Yeah, I love the way you put it. We're not going to lose anything by this. Thank you.
So really quick, you've got 3 MESA classes, 5 art classes as the electives.
I had 3 last year. I only have 1 this year because I
okay.
recognized it was stealing away from other electives.
Okay, so 1 MESA, 5 art, 2 chorus.
6 art because we have 7 periods a day.
Oh, that's right.
So yes, full sections of art. We have 3 sections of chorus,
3, okay.
6 sections of band.
6 band?
Yes, that includes
Wow.
a guitar, 2 or 3 guitar, 2 classes of guitar, excuse me.
Fabulous.
And then we have leadership, 2 leadership classes. We have MESA, you added MESA. What am I missing?
What
Help
about
me out.
home ec?
We do not have home ec.
Didn't you used to have a life
Yes, we did.
skills?
We did.
You probably have
Teen
ELD.
skills class.
Teen skills something? That's
Yeah.
gone.
No, we had to choose between art and teen skills, and although teen skills I think is a very valuable class for students to have, we were getting to a different population in art than wanted to take teen skills.
And aren't you doing digital media?
We are doing digital media, and we also have 2 coding classes this year. So the digital media class will be next year. I'll tell you what it looks like. It's instead of having somebody come over the loudspeaker and doing announcements, students will be opening their Chromebook, and students will be acting like a news broadcast, and students will get that every day. The students themselves will be broadcasting like a news broadcast, the student announcements every day. So it's going to be a really cool class. Coach Dewey is going to be doing that, and he's really high-tech and loves this stuff. So we invested quite a bit of money into our new digital media class.
Because he kind of looks like a Luddite, you know?
Yes, yes.
I just want to throw out that in my day, we had semesters of electives so that you had more choices and you could do more things. And I'm always surprised that we don't do that more. If one of our points is to expose kids to a bunch of different things, I just wanted to, somebody thinking about that. I'm sure it would be a nightmare for the scheduling. You know.
We actually had a dream session with Mr. Crawford, he's not here anymore, about how we can put CTE more into Pomelita, and talked about adding a Scrubs class, like a Scrubs 1, so that they could start Scrubs 2 when they're freshmen.
Love that.
And also a small engines class. And we talked about how I could get, we at Pomelita, how we could get students up to the high school to have those 8th graders take those classes at the high school, which would be the last period of the day. So we're still in talking. So I might be coming back saying I need $30,000 to buy sections of something someday. But I think that would be a great thing for 8th graders to have that experience, to be able to move into a Scrubs class or that. So anyway.
Sounds good. Okay.
And Brian, I thank you so much for your comments. I'm not trying to be a creep. In the essence of time for my fellow board members, we have a very long list.
Yes.
Small engines class was the best class I took in high school.
Right?
Just saying.
All right.
But in the essence of time, I'm gonna hold those kind of comments.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank you, Brian, for choosing the art over that. I've seen the stuff on the walls, and I've been in her classroom, and she's fabulous. And I just got the feeling she was a little overwhelmed, and I just hope you're giving her everything she needs that makes it as easy as possible.
I have never said no.
Okay, B, do you have something?
No, oh, sorry.
Okay, then can we move along to number 15, 16, and 17?
Yes.
Okay.
Katie, can you talk about that?
So,
Well,
great.
Katie's
You
gonna
can tell us what's going on in Oak Manor?
Sure. So,
Full-time school psychologist.
as Brian had said, this year we added district office staff to the leadership teams at the different sites. And one of the things that came out of that, I was Oak Manor's lead, was that they felt like they needed more support with behaviors at their school. So Oak Manor has the TIERS program that has students from throughout the district that come to the program. And although they have their own setting, they do, the idea is that as students learn to function better in a classroom, that they start to get pushed out to the regular classroom. So the students that are in the TIERS program are in both their program classroom and then also in other classrooms in the school based on their grade. So next year, we're adding another TIERS classroom. Our TIERS classrooms have approximately 8 students, so we will have access for another 8 students. And so with that comes some challenges when those students are in the classroom, and the site has really saw that as a need, that they need more help support with behaviors. And you can see that some of the ideas that they came up with and they presented their information to us were assistant principal, behaviorist, school psychologist. And they had some other things, but some of those have been dealt with, like training, like can we get some more training, PROACT training, so when a student's melting down, we know what to do, and or we can be preventative. In addition, that site also has some other needs students. So they weren't only referring to TIER students, but they also have some students that have challenges that they recognize, and they understand that other sites have those challenges as well, but that they really feel like they need the support because of this extra program that's there that has students from all across the district, and because they do have some students with some behavioral needs. So that's where this came out of. The principals, as you can see, not principals, but leadership was supportive of this as well. It was same number of, or almost the same number of votes. And you'll notice we combined 16 and 17 just they want some support, and we think it's more, the teacher representative said, yeah, it's really behavioral support that we need. So that's why that is on there.
So I didn't quite understand that. Are you looking to hire a behaviorist or a school psychologist? Is it the same
We put
person?
it in as a behaviorist, not a school psychologist, because of the feedback that we got from when we were in DAC. And the reason under DAC, the score, we combined it because that came up and the representative said, it's not that we really want all these different positions, we really feel like we need support in behavior. And so that's why it's combined on that one.
Okay, Zoe.
So for the tiers program, if there's going to be 16 students, how many support staff? There's the 2 teachers and then?
So the way we get funded through special ed is that we get funded for 1 per class, 1 teacher and 2 instructional aides, but when we sometimes have to have more instructional aid support because the students also go out into the classroom, and sometimes aides go with them there. So it depends on the IEP of the student, but there are, I don't have the actual number of support staff in the class right now, but it's more than 2.
So
That's a minimum, I just want to clarify, minimum of 3 per 8, 3 adults to 8 kids.
Correct.
So I'm all for behaviors, except for I'm wondering so for 16 students and there's at least 6 staff members for 16 students, a minimum of 6 staff members, and then they need a behaviorist basically for those 16 students that also have?
No, they recognize, that's one reason that those students move into the other classrooms, but Oak Manor itself, they've recognized, has a lot of students that have other behavioral needs. So this behaviorist would work both with students that are in the tiers program in the mainstream class and students that are just in the class that need more support.
I mean, it makes me a little concerned to think, what if next year Nokomis has a couple of really hard kids? Then do they need a behaviorist, or should this behaviorist go to other sites as well? Because does Oak Manor do the other sites agree that Oak Manor students are more difficult? I mean, it's sort of a tricky thing to say that Oak Manor needs this special hire, but what about the other sites? Or what if things change, and then what do we do?
So when we did, to first answer, when we met in leadership, you can see the points. People were in support of that, and they recognized that Oak Manor does have some more challenging students. And so that was that part. And we have not talked about, would we, look at that, and if in the future we needed to shift it, but we could.
And correct that Nokomis is, their counselor has been working with an agency to provide a behaviorist at Nokomis, and they're going to be billing Medi-Cal. They're trying this out with this agency to bill Medi-Cal to reimburse the cost.
And they're doing a pilot, and they've had a few bumps with that. So it hasn't, we were hoping that that was going to be in full pilot mode in May. And I know that hasn't completely happened yet. There's some billing issues and some other issues that are getting worked out, but I think we'll get there.
For me, I guess, because I hadn't heard anything about this, so it sort of came out of the blue to see all these needs for Oak Manor, and it took me by surprise because I didn't realize that they had such needs, and it just took me by surprise.
In terms of their data, when we've looked at their suspension rates, they are a little bit higher than some of the other elementary schools. So they do have, if we look at that, they have some specific needs.
It seems that maybe one thing, though, that Zoe mentioned could happen, I mean, I don't know why it couldn't, if another school had some issues that this person couldn't come over and give some advice, do some observing and give some advice. And I certainly think there are many teachers that would benefit from having training because we mainstream all over the place. And
that's what I see it too, Carolyn, is this is a resource for teachers. If they're struggling with a particular student or two in their classroom, the behaviors can come and observe and
Right.
give the teacher teacher some ideas on how to modify things.
How is this different than the Steve Hom and the other gentleman who work at MCOE?
They work through a grant on PBIS, and a behaviorist is more, is trained in really looking at, in more detail on student behavior and what responses you can have.
Do you think you'll be able to hire one?
We hope so.
So can I also, I'm wondering if this, in the strategic plan, if it should specify Oak Manor, because it's sort of vague when it says support a positive learning environment for all students. If it's targeting just Oak Manor, I'm wondering if somebody might look at that and think that that's district-wide.
What page are you on?
35.
You're correct, we should have put Oak Manor in there. The reason we put all was to recognize that we weren't just referring to special ed students, so you're correct, that should say
Oh,
Oak
I
Manor.
see.
Thank you.
Tyler? Is that Megan? Megan?
I think my comment is, I feel, again, that the amount of people and money we're putting into social emotional counseling behaviorists just feels like it's mushrooming to me. Again, I'm not saying there's not a need for it, but I just want to make sure we're being really clear that we're not solving problems that, not throwing people, that's like not a very good phrase or whatever, but are we making sure that we're putting equal and really good attention to really excellent teaching, excellent classroom management, rather than saying, these kids are really difficult, we need to send them to the behaviorist? I just want to be really sure we're doing that, because in all of the stuff we're doing, I continue to be a little bit concerned that we're not putting as much really deep concern on what is happening in the classroom, not just academically, but in terms of really good classroom management, really great structure so that kids are able to succeed in there. And I know we have a lot of new teachers. I know we have a lot of teachers that may have struggling with kids, and just having the outside person to send that kid to go see the behaviorist makes me nervous. I understand the behaviorist will go into the classroom. I think that's great, but I also know that teachers and getting coaching and feedback, that's a rocky situation too, that takes a lot of work and cultural work too to make those changes. So that's just my concern. We're putting a lot of money into layers outside of the classroom. This behaviorist might be different, but it makes me worried that we're not paying enough attention to how we can support what's happening in the classroom.
And Megan, I do think though that this behaviorist would be helping the teacher. So it's not just, pull the kid out. The idea is actually that the behaviorist is in there watching what's going on and then coaching the teacher, giving the teacher feedback.
And I do like that. I
Yeah.
think my comments in general are about spending a lot of money and time outside of the classroom.
And I will say many of the teachers that discussed this need were seasoned teachers that have a lot of really good backgrounds. So I think what they're seeing is, a level of student that they need support with.
Okay.
Gail?
So we are talking about this is not a contract for behavioral services.
Correct.
This is a person that would be employed at the site full-time. Okay. I do think that's important about giving teachers training, because they really are not getting training in the institutions in which they're getting their credential for the kind of child they're dealing with. I guess I also feel that Oak Manor I've always felt when I was visiting there that it's a different feeling there. And I think some of it too is that you picked up another whole school and dumped them at a foreign school. You don't have the closeness of parents. You don't have the families in the community. And whenever you have that, I think that really affects the overall climate of a school, and it makes for more detachment. But I do think the fact that the behaviors would be available to other teachers for really on-site training. I just remember when the behaviorists would come, they would always teach you to look for the antidote and deal with the antidote, and all this list of 15 things, which is fine when you didn't have 29 other students in the class. And there was some value to it, but having somebody who can really intervene and be there is important for other parents who are concerned about mainstreaming when it affects the quality of education for their child.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote on this?
I just have one
Oh,
quick question.
sorry about that.
I'm concerned about the cost estimate at 75,000. If experienced teachers are having this problem, we do not want a brand-new counselor. We want somebody with 10 years of experience, or it's not going to be of any help. Is there a way to make sure we hire a person in not at entry level? We don't want to be teaching this person. It's bad enough that we have so many first years who joined us when we hired all 6 school counselors. We don't want this person to be brand new.
What is this job requirement? I mean, what would you be to be a behaviorist?
Well,
We have to work on a job
Clinical.
yeah, we currently,
We'll be bringing the board back a job description.
I totally agree with Anne. I mean, hiring super skilled people in this community, we all know is almost impossible. And if this is a super skilled person or nobody, in my opinion. I mean, we're not hiring someone to get them used to like learn about difficult kids. That's not the point. They need to be way more skilled than anyone in this district.
And if they need to be at a higher step, more at the school psychologist step, then so be it. I'd rather pay $20,000 more and get somebody who's valuable to the teachers.
Or a part-time person that comes up from Santa Rosa, if that's what it takes. I mean, what we're hearing the district needs is someone with a level of skill that we don't have in this district, and we probably don't really know of anybody in this community. So if we can't attract that, I agree that we're just wasting money.
Even 2 days a week out of Santa Rosa would be better than a brand new person.
We want someone from UCSF with like a a PhD.
A PhD, but a practical PhD, not just a theoretical one.
All right, so can we have a motion on this one?
Well, it says yes.
I know, but we are approving the yeses.
Sorry.
Okay.
Everything you circled.
I move that we accept 16 and 17.
No. 16.
I move that, oh, we haven't
That's
talked
kind
about.
of confusing.
I move that we accept 16 as it stands.
Could I make a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
That we accept 16, but be willing to go to $100,000?
Negotiating the salary.
Is that okay? Or is that a different
I'm
motion?
gonna not make a motion right now. Let me ask, do we need the $75,000? It sounds like we don't have a job description.
It's true.
Do we need to suggest throwing another $25,000 at it? I don't know what a behaviorist level is, but I think my 2 colleagues bring up a pretty significant point.
If it's at that level, it's going to be at the management level. If it's at MCOE has some job descriptions for behaviorists that we probably look to.
mhm.
And I can't remember how theirs is classified.
I know.
If it's a classified position or if it's like a classified manager
I think
position.
it's classified because I don't think there's a credential for this. So unless there's a credential, it's not certificated. So I don't think there's a behavior credential.
I think there's something close to it. I mean, you
So
have
we
to go,
just need to look into
or,
it more
yeah.
and figure out the job description and where we place it.
So I'm gonna throw a motion out again. And Anne, since you're the one that brought this up, let me see how this feels to you. I would say let's stick with the $75,000. If there's a need for a higher amount, I don't think it's gonna be real hard to twist our arms to move it up when the time comes.
Could say up to.
Up to,
I would like to make a motion that we accept number 16 up to $100,000.
My second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving down to number 22, hire consultants to evaluate or DLIP K-12, develop K-12 DLIP.
This was me again, sorry.
So
Do
we're
you-
making good progress in this area. We've had a committee meeting all year. They are working on a K-12 DLIP plan. It should be, they need to run it by some teachers, and it should be finalized by the fall.
Correct.
But there's no plans for anything, any improvements to the DLIP program in the fall.
We're looking at trying to articulate the program better, so the program plan talks about articulation. So we have met 3 times. We haven't been meeting all year. We were actually going to use Title I funds to help support a consultant. We were waiting to hear from the consultant. We never did hear back. So we finally got going. And we've met 3 times with the principals of the DLIP programs, and then and Barbara Ganter and I. And then on May 24th, we're meeting with some lead DLIP teachers that'll be coming. And the 2 topics on that is looking at articulation from AP down, because really our goal is to get students to be to pass the seal of biliteracy. And when we look at those courses, you know, they're prepping them for AP. So the other part on May 24th is we'll be reviewing the plan. And then we want to do some further work with getting those teachers together to work on articulating the plan. Or articulating the program a little bit more.
So are you, I'm sorry, are you looking at actually having some courses at the high school that are not just Spanish for Spanish speakers or Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4? Because it seems that there's such a, in my opinion, you go through K-5, then you go to Pomelita, and you have Spanish language arts, and you have Spanish, social studies in Spanish, and then you go to the high school, and there's essentially nothing for the DLIP kids. They can take Spanish for Spanish speakers, which isn't really designed as a DLIP program, or you can take Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we hear from parents that they would really like there to be some classes that are available that are that are content in Spanish. And I'm wondering, is that part of the plan you guys are looking at?
We have not, well, I shouldn't say we haven't discussed it. It's not in the plan. So when we did look at that, that topic came up. One is, do we want to look at adding another, you know, like doing social studies in Spanish? Or having a track that is not Spanish for Spanish speakers, but would be a Spanish language arts for DLIP students or something like that. The hard part with that is that the numbers of students cause a, right now, I should have brought my numbers with me, but we looked at all the data. It would cause probably 1 section or 1.5 sections of a, if we were talking about the DLIP program for Spanish, and social studies would be the same. And because we have 6 periods at the high school, it would really limit those students and their schedules. So we did look at it, but we felt like we wouldn't want to put that in because it really would limit the course taking of those students, and it would also, because it causes singlets and
I'm wondering if maybe there should be some way of communicating that with parents, because we hear a lot about, I hear a lot about from parents who feel like the high school is like, you drop off with the DLIP program and it's just kind of forgotten. So I wonder if there's some way of either bringing some parents in so they're part of that discussion, or some way of communicating with them so that they realize that it's actually not forgotten, it's strategic.
That's a great idea, and part of our plan has a communication piece, and we came up with some strategies that we want to use to help better communicate with parents about DLIP, because one of the other pieces that we saw in our data is, you know, our end goal for DLIP is that students get the seal of biliteracy, and not everybody, not all of our students that were DLIP end up getting the seal, or have not yet. And so that's a whole nother piece that we want to make sure that parents know. And so we've, in the communication plan, we've put in that that's going to be talked on all the transitions, and that we'll also have a DLIP meeting. And the other part that came up that, talking about clubs, is looking at possibly having a DLIP club so that we could.
And is there an
that.
age requirement for taking that Spanish, the AP Spanish test? Because I had an interesting conversation with a DLIP teacher who said she thought that ultimately the K-8 program kids should be able to exit the K-8 program with that seal of biliteracy, that they should be able to pass that test, which I thought was a wonderful goal. And someone was expressing some curiosity as if, can you take that test at a younger age, or do you have to wait till you're a senior when you maybe haven't been doing the Spanish?
I don't know. I would have to look into that.
You don't have to wait until you're a senior.
No, no.
Right.
And you don't even have to take a course that prepares you. I mean, you can take an AP course.
But maybe that could be taken into consideration, that maybe some kids, when they come right from Pomelita in 9th grade, that could be an option to be discussed, taking the test then, and maybe encouraging them. Can you take it more than once? I'm not very AP savvy.
Yes, you can.
So you could take it as a freshman, and if you didn't pass it, you could take it again in a few years.
And the other point on our group meeting is also so that the K-8 program understands the level of what students have to do on the AP. There's 2 Spanish AP
Right.
assessments, and so that we recognized last year there was some dictation that they hadn't really worked on before, so they're going to work on that in the middle school programs as well. But we can find that information out. We didn't talk about that, like, having younger students taking
Be
the AP.
interesting to see.
Megan? I'm not going to really repeat what Zoe said, but I echo the same sentiments. I mean, I don't hear from parents that often. I mean, I really don't. It's sort of sad, but this has come up several times from DLIP parents who are pretty frustrated with what's going on in the high school. And I don't want to keep talking about it too long, but I guess what I didn't understand in that, they only have 6 periods, you don't want to take too much out of it. But what I feel like I was hearing is that the Spanish courses that the DLIP kids are taking already, so they're already committed to a period of Spanish, what's offered there doesn't fit what they're, so to me, I saw it as a switch out, not necessarily an addition on, but making sure that the Spanish that's offered there, I think that's what you were saying, that they're already taking is actually suited to that population. So they're not just native speakers, they may not, they're not native speakers, they have a different skill set than native speakers. So that's that, but it sounds like you guys are working on it, I'm looking forward to seeing the
because
plan.
we've had some conversations that are actually the opposite of that the Spanish or Spanish speakers is maybe not supporting the Spanish-speaking students enough, so.
So everyone's unhappy.
Yeah, because they are preparing them for the AP through that program. And one thing that did come up in the DLIP was looking at Spanish or Spanish speakers in younger grades as well. So that was another thing. But we'll be presenting hopefully in August or September.
Gail?
Yeah, my concern is that there's all this time being spent on this. And what's going to happen is that the parents are going to get to high school and find out that if they do that, they can't do AP classes because there's just so many, and we can't do 0 period. So I think it's a wonderful program, but you don't ever get everything you want, and it is hard to fit in all the extra classes you need for UC and everything else and still maintain that particular program. And the only thing about, taking it in the beginning, and then if you don't continue the Spanish, I don't know how much you retain. I mean, my daughter just took Spanish from 6th grade on, and she was, totally fluent by the time she came out. And, but that was before they had a DLIP program. So I think they have to look at the consequences of trying to do everything and really kind of figure out what's best for the kids.
Did you have something, Ann?
Are there any parents on your committee?
Not currently.
Okay. So just in terms of communication, you might put out a draft report where you ask some questions and get some feedback from parents, and you could email that to everybody who's ever been in the DLIP program, just so that the first time they see it, it's not the final.
Mm-hmm. Good idea.
Okay, so does everybody agree we can move along on this one?
And number 23, increase for Mesa, increase funding.
Oh, that, did we circle that?
The
24.
24.
Oh, I had both 23 and 24, I think so.
Someone said 23.
Nope, not me. Oh, okay, well, I'm moving along, so
24.
24, provide a stipend for AP and honors teachers. I didn't have 24.
Was this me? This was only me? Oh, okay, so this is back to my issue of, so the AP teachers I know, they teach the regular class, but then they also spend, for example, the last 2 Sundays for 4 hours each, and every single Wednesday at lunch for the entire year, helping these kids get ready. So it really does seem like more. Plus, they had to grade a practice AP exam that they took 2 Saturdays ago. It really is more work. And so I just want to say that my humble little gifts at the end of the year to my AP teachers are probably not enough. And the other problem that we've heard about, some from speakers here, is that they have to write so many letters of recommendation that they're exhausted and they can't even get anything else done. And we know of one teacher who stopped teaching calculus because he couldn't write letters anymore. He just couldn't bring himself to write anymore. So I think we have to do something, because a lot of these students, when you're a 4.0 and you're applying to all these schools and you look exactly like all those other 4.0 kids, it takes a really good letter of recommendation from a teacher who knows you to get in to those certain elite colleges. And I'm not saying everybody has to go there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think that it's different than teaching a regular class.
Any other comments?
Nicole, this has come up through negotiations, correct?
Yes, this is one of the things that's come up in negotiations.
And I would echo what Ann says, having worked in a high school with a large number of AP students, the number of letters of recommendation that are being written, if you teach 2 to 3 AP classes, you're writing 60 to 80 letters of recommendation. And our teachers here in Ukiah, they take it seriously. They spend a tremendous amount of time per letter, because they know that what they say in that letter makes a difference to getting a student in college. And so I would agree, Ann, that the impact on those teachers is particularly great.
So Deb, are you saying this is something that we could only deal with through negotiations?
If it's a stipend, yes.
Is it something, you said it's come up in negotiations, but has UTA wanted to sunshine it, or whatever the phrase is?
No, it's been discussed by members of the negotiations team, but it's not been something that UTA's presented and asked to negotiate as of yet. It's not that they've the last couple years, it's come up along with other things, because there's a lot of time that teachers spend.
I think it'd be, I don't know how to resolve the question, but, I've had teachers say to me, AP teachers, well, why are we not getting stipends? And it puts me in an uncomfortable position to say, it's not something I think your bargaining team has advocated for. So I don't really know how to, this is something where I'm not sure where the responsibility lies to actually have this conversation. So if there's members of UTA who are asking for this, but the UTA leadership does not want to ask for it, then that's something that needs to be worked out at the UTA level, right? So I'd be interested in having a discussion. I'm not necessarily saying we need to commit, and probably would not be appropriate for us to say right now we want to implement it here, but I'm not sure where we can have this discussion.
It would not be inappropriate for the district to sunshine this and ask, we've sunshined other stipends, so this would not be inappropriate for us to go to the negotiations table and ask to negotiate a stipend for this or something else.
So it's not on the agenda for tonight to do that, but could we just say we'd like a non-voted upon placeholder for that, and we'd like to talk about it this fall or something, so that we're ready when we do sunshine to talk about it? Because we can't really vote on that, because it's not up for a vote.
This could be considered a pre-sunshine, shall we say a dawn? Negotiation,
the aurora of stipends for
I do think the complexity is more complicated on the UTA side than it is on ours. So,
Yes.
the sooner we begin the discussion, probably the better.
Good. All right.
Okay.
So we will revisit in August.
Okay, number 25, hire a classified communications position full-time.
I circled that, and you can cross it off, whatever.
You don't want to discuss it?
I'm tired.
Can I discuss it?
Go ahead.
This is something that we've talked about. There's been money in the budget, and I can't remember how we paid for this before. Why wasn't there interest by the various groups to support this?
We currently have an allocation set aside for communications, and it's not a full-time position by any means, but I find the services highly effective.
And I think, as a board, I'm speaking for you guys, but I think we've noted that as well, and we've discussed having outside help or inside help. Would there be a benefit for having somebody inside our UUSD umbrella, or is the $40,000?
I think we need to find the right person. The challenge certainly is communications come at all Sometimes they come at midnight, when we have crisis, and so if you're hiring, somebody who's part of a marketing unit with contracted hours, that would become a challenge, as opposed to a management level position. So those are some of the challenges that come up, so.
Thank you.
The amount of money that, the amount you're using, Jendi, right now, how close does that come to making your life very, very good, medium good, or just good
I think that the level that we have right now is good,
for now?
yeah.
Okay.
I think we can always do more. Brian talked about it too, we can always do more with communication. Would we love a full-time person? Absolutely. I think
So
it
what level would you
cost
put her
us-
at now?
I think
Half-time,
it would
quarter-time?
cost us a lot more
Yeah,
than we think it would to have a full-time person
Yeah.
who has the right skill set and could work at all hours of the day.
but is the understanding, do you feel comfortable that if you needed to use her more beyond 40,000, that would be okay with the board, or how do we feel
Yes,
about
if
that?
it were much more than that, I'd want to come back for more authorization for funding, but,
All right.
Okay,
Okay?
moving right along, number 29,
Oh, good.
add a professional development day after each quarter for certificated
Oh, that was
staff.
mine. This is just very brief. I do want to respond to the teachers' comments that were at the DAC about, I know this is not a possibility, but I thought there was a really valid argument that having some time to evaluate data so that you can really benefit from using that data in instruction is important. And I'd like to see us just work on doing that in some way, because it is crucial to how effective you can be in terms of moving the child from one level to the next. So I don't know how we could do that, but I just think it's worth pursuing in terms of, with the teachers and finding out what other possibilities might work for them, that's all.
Okay, any other comments? All right, so
I
we're,
guess my concern would be, where would you find those days? I mean, how do they exist?
well, for the most part, we'd have to add them. I mean, there is one day that, this past year, I think it was November 1st, and we had just given the first benchmark assessment, so that was placed then. But we also need days before school starts with teachers, and obviously, that's really important too. So we could technically take the existing days and spread them throughout the year. When we do calendar, looking at the calendar, but I think the concept when this got brought up through UTA Rep Council, and I think it was additional days that were scheduled after benchmark assessments, and I think it's a wonderful idea, truthfully. But we would just need to figure out how to fund it, we'd have to negotiate it, if it's additional days.
and if it's,
And I don't know where the date falls next year, the non-beginning of the school year
November
days,
1st.
is it November
Oh,
1st?
non-beginning of school,
It's
August
probably-
14th.
Right, but it's probably, the other one is probably November
It is
1st.
November
Yes.
1st.
Which will be
Kids love
good.
that. Oh, it's the day after Halloween again?
Yes.
Kids love that. Well, I'm very much, if this came from the teachers, I'm very much in favor of this. And again, even if it meant that we negotiated it this year and it took, well, I guess that's not very far away. If it's too late to negotiate this year, then we'd negotiate it for the next year. But I'm very much in favor of it. If it came from teachers and they think that would be valuable, fabulous.
but then we would have to add days, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I don't know if there was widespread support. This is Deb Cuban's feeling from UTA Rep Council. It was an idea brought up by a teacher in Rep Council. And, there would need to be a lot that would get worked out. We do have the highest number of work days in our area for teachers, but I don't know if you have thoughts about it.
There were several teachers who brought that issue up, and then there were several teachers who brought the issue up of having too many work days already. So looking at a way to put those extra 2 days into the calendar for what to happen for next year, but somehow to do that, even if we only get one more day
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
changed from the beginning of the school year, that might make people happy. I don't know.
So when the calendar gets looked at, I think the team should look at that.
Okay, so let's also remember to at least put on the list of possible sunshine event.
Or maybe we could make it a voluntary half-day, and those who wanted to benefit could.
Megan, did you have something?
No.
Is that- Okay, so then we're going to 31, pay teachers to attend multi-agency foster meetings.
I'd like to move that we do set this money aside and have it available for teachers. They don't have to take advantage of it, but I'd like it to be a possibility, and I'd like it to be encouraged. I think, I mean, maybe I don't even have to talk anymore about it, but I do think that we have very few expenditures, if any, that are very specifically for foster children, and this would be one, and it's $5,000.
I agree.
So I think if a teacher wants to and is available to attend a multidisciplinary team meeting about a foster student in their class, we should absolutely pay them to do that.
I second. Was that a motion?
Yeah, it's a
I
motion.
second.
Could I make a friendly amendment that it include not just teachers, but also principals and/or family resource, that's not what they call it, family and
Family
community
liaison.
liaisons, and that we increase it from 5,160 to 10,000, so that anybody who's available,
Up to.
up to 10,000, and anybody who's available who's appropriate.
It could be the counselor, too.
Could be the counselor, could be.
I would have to question the community liaison. You're going to get into an issue of confidentiality there, and I know that the public agencies would be very reluctant to, I think, to go down, because I've had this discussion recently.
My hesitation,
They were pretty confidential.
Well,
my concern on that, Ann, is I really want the teacher to attend, who's in the classroom with the kid all day long.
Because it's a,
My concern is if it's a family community liaison, they may just do it all, and the teachers are like, I would rather the emphasis be really clear on that, or counselor.
principal, resource teacher, but certificated.
That's what I'm thinking, the person who's spending the most time with the child.
Okay.
So
May I?
this would cover a substitute? Is that what
No,
we're
I
looking
think,
for?
I think after school. I think not substitute. And I think we should make a strong request to the foster family agencies to schedule these in the afternoon. They have more flexibility than teachers in their scheduling. So I would really strongly encourage, it would be nice, Deb, if you could communicate to Health and Human Services Agency that teachers in Ukiah will have the option if they so choose, but they would need to be scheduled outside of school hours. Or however you want to communicate it, you know what I mean? Does that make sense, Carolyn?
Yes. Tyler, thank you for that.
Was there any discussion on why this didn't get any votes from either of the parties that we've been looking at?
I think it's such a small amount, I think it's fine.
They didn't want to waste their dots, that's what I meant. They didn't want to waste their dots.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to include this up to 10,000?
I
Yes,
think the
I accept
motion
that.
and second was made?
Well, I made an amendment, so could you
Yes.
remove?
I move that we approve this funding allocation up to 10,000 and include encouragement for teachers and counselors and principals, if appropriate, to attend these meetings if they're able to.
Okay,
Second?
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we got that? All right, number 33, add funding for collaborative classroom furniture.
I really like the balls where you can kind of bounce. It takes up a little bit of your brain and then it makes me pay attention. So I guess this is one of those things where if we knew 20 years ago what we know now about brain development, our classrooms would not look like they look. So we gotta push ourselves. And I'm not saying we gotta replace everything, but I would at the very least, if I were, I would look for ways that we could start this. I don't think it needs to be $100,000. I think we could start at 50,000. But every single time we replace something, looking for brain-wise and learning-wise, what is the best replacement piece of equipment? So.
I agree.
I agree too.
Tyler?
We discussed this in the committee, facilities master plan, thank you. It sounds super awesome. It's gonna take a whole bunch of money, which I think that we can start planning for. The discussion, if I can't remember exactly, but it takes a whole bunch of money, you have to do it gradually. What I would like to suggest is that we keep this in mind on how awesome it is, but wait for the facilities master plan to kind of lay out that part of it so we can actually utilize that program. If you, because the seats look awesome, I totally agree, but I'd like to see what the plan says first and then start using that plan.
I think that would be great in the future, but I'm afraid that we're buying things this year until that plan is over, until that plan is fully developed, so we're not taking advantage of everything that neuroscientists have learned. And that seems like a waste. So I think the amount will go way up once we know more, but even at this beginning point, I'd like us to start. When are we approving that?
Is there money this year? Is there money this year for the furniture?
We have a small allocation for furniture next year, but it's furniture, also vehicle replacement and safety equipment. And it's not quite enough money, truthfully.
Does this include the chairs that kids can move in?
We
Rocking.
don't really have.
Love those.
We have some budget, but it's just not enough.
I'd just like to echo what Ann said. I know that I would not say that the county is always the vanguard of futuristic thought, but in Health and Human Services, anytime a desk is being replaced, it's being done with a sit-stand desk. It's really made a difference already to a lot of people that work there. So it's just that concept that anything you buy needs to have that kind of, you should not be buying any desks anymore unless they're sit-stand, in my opinion, because, no, not for the kids, maybe the kids too, I don't know. But there's a lot of, I agree, we need to be thinking of all replacement with that kind of thought in mind.
Well, we can look at it with
I believe it's next month that we're gonna be getting the master plan for what we've been working on, and they're gonna make a presentation next month in June, and then I think again in August, right? And already, the high school has gotten some furniture that they are putting to work, and I agree that we need to do some different and fancy kinds of things, but too often we jump into something and we're not full-fledged enough and have had enough experience with it in order for it to be as effective as it can be. And so I would like us to look at the plan that we've come up with, and from there, start doing it from, the principals are there from all the schools. There are teachers, and there are, like I said, some people that have already trying things. So I'd like to do it, not at a snail's pace, but not in oh, this is a great thing, because too often we have these great things and they're over there in the closet because we weren't trained well enough to use them properly. People didn't really want them, even though they thought they wanted them. And so I think we have to be careful not to be wasteful with this, because part of the issue with facilities also has to do with the possibility of going for bond funds and things like that. So we don't want to overdo this. Zoe?
So since now is the time to set money aside, couldn't we set some money aside for collaborative classroom furniture, but not spend it until we see what comes with the master plan, but have the money there, knowing that that's what we'll be purchasing with it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'd like to make a motion to spend up to $100,000 in addition to whatever else has been set aside for furniture and classroom objects in the next fiscal year, depending upon the recommendations of the master plan.
So Ann, could that technically be like, could we set aside ending fund balance, for example? If we have unspent money that we see in September, it could be put toward that.
I mean, rather than here.
Rather than supplemental concentration grant
Oh, that we have to take away from somewhere else.
If that is available, that's fine, but we still got 600,000 at E-rate, so I'm not worried.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
She,
Okay.
she
So maybe
wants
not
that
supplemental
E-rate.
concentration grant funding, but a
Yeah.
other funding source.
Okay.
So Ann, is
So-
that a
so
new motion?
stipulated.
You got it.
I will second that.
Thank you.
So what's the motion now?
The motion was to add $100,000 to whatever exists in next year's classroom furniture and big supply item. And that 100,000 could come from SCG funds next year, or it could come from unspent funds.
So that's a substitute for 33.
It is 33.
It is 33.
Okay, but it's still 100,000.
Correct.
Okay.
So is that all right with you?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, looking for a second.
And I will second
you're-
that.
Okay, all in
Clarify.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, typing.
All right,
I
Katie,
wonder who brought that up.
let's talk about typing. What are we gonna do?
Did we do 32, or did no one circle 32? Okay.
So since I brought this up, I'm,
Yes.
just would
Okay.
like to
I didn't know if we
share
were gonna change it.
why typing is important. I'm tired of typing my daughter's pages. I also think that it's incredibly important, since we do have these new tools, the one-to-one Chromebooks, and we're doing all of our testing with Chromebooks, that we need to teach our kids.
Totally agree.
Like we teach them how to read and write. Even though Ann did it in her household, and I hold her in high esteem, I think there are many parents like myself
Me too. Can't do
that
it.
would like some extra help, since we're requiring the kids to take tests on computers. Katie, I am not smart enough. How do we do this? Where do we do this? How can we fit it into supplemental concentration grant?
So we met with the instructional technology leaders to talk about, we look at the technology skills. And we discussed where we want to emphasize keyboarding. So in our skills matrix, it starts at second grade. And that really in second and third grade, that's where we have mapped out that skill should be worked on explicitly. Because the way most teachers do it now is it's kind of, we've surveyed teachers, there's 2 major free applications that teachers use. It just kind of depends on which ones they like. And then they use it, they pretty much, if they have time or they have a library time or they have other times, they'll fill in and do typing, but it's not systematic. So we've identified the grades that we want to have it be explicitly taught. And then our next steps really are, how do we find time to do that where it's not taking away other additional instructional time? So that's the next step, because most people see it as, well, we're once the students are in 4th grade, they're doing so much keyboarding and typing, it's partially integrated. So our next step is to work on finding out in 2nd and 3rd grade where we can do that, where we would not have as much impact. So we have some ideas of where to do that.
So, do we, I guess, again, mostly because we're talking about funding here, but I think it's also, I'm curious about how the timeline is for the teaching. Do we need to set aside money for training programs for either the teachers or buying books like my mom made me do at home, which is not that good of a parent? Do we need to set aside training money for teachers or books or computer programs for the children? And it'll be interesting to see when the 2nd, 3rd grade tackle this, to see if it continues in 4th grade and they're actually doing typing. But it's certainly not what I'm experiencing in my house, and the kids are typing papers, and it's this hunt and peck stuff that doesn't seem to work out.
So there are, I would say, I don't think the teachers need a ton of training, and we do have technology funds to help support that. There could be a need if we wanted to look at actually purchasing an application instead of using free applications that could potentially be, better quality.
So for a system, I'm sorry for dominating.
No,
Just
go
yell at
for it.
me. For us, you used a word that like a systematic approach, so we have something spelled out that is required by the second and/or third grade. I think that's really important that it's part of that. It doesn't sound like we need money right now. What's the timeline look like on that for your schedule?
So we just met with the ITLs on this. We had met about it last year. We surveyed teachers. We looked at what what applications they were using, because there were some questions. Do we need to purchase an app? And then we looked back at it with our ITLs again this year, and we've come up with a little matrix on what are some of the basic skills that we want to make sure are taught at specific grades. So our next step, though, is really getting agreement from those grade levels and then figuring out a time, because it will depend a little bit on the site and their schedules of how they can put that systematically into their schedules. So that's our next step, is how we do that.
I gotta jump in. I'm so mystified by this. I don't understand why this is so complicated. I mean, not many things I hearken back to, like, oh, we should go back to the old days, but, all of us took a quarter of typing, keyboarding, and it worked, and we all know how to type. I don't understand why we're not doing that. I don't understand why every third grade is not doing, during a quarter, 1 day a week in PE, that a typing teacher comes into the classroom and teaches them how to type. I mean, I'm mystified. I just don't understand why. I'm baffled. I'm baffled by such an incredibly core skill is not being taught discreetly, rather than trying to encourage our second and third grade teachers, who have so many things to do already, to also become typing teachers. I just don't get it.
And it's only like 10 minutes a day you have to do it.
That's
the thing
mystifying.
for
But
me.
what's most mystifying to me, this is what's most mystifying to me. Why doesn't everyone agree with us? Like, I don't understand. Like, I feel this is so urgent, and you all are doing this. What?
Are you proposing that we hire staff to do it because teachers can't do it?
I don't know what I'm proposing. I'm
proposing we do it during PE. We take the 40-minute PE and we take 10 minutes of PE. That paraprofessional comes in, the first 10 minutes of PE in second and third grades. The kids are already in their classrooms. They get their Chromebooks out. They have 10 minutes of typing, and then they go out to PE with their PE para.
This is
Every
not a
day, and
complicated skill.
teachers don't have to do it. I mean, it's self-guided. It's easy.
The reason I'm ranting about it is it's like a total bafflement to me that teachers are not saying this is a total crisis. And that's what I don't. That's where there's some disconnect going on here.
I just don't think they look at it as important.
That's obviously they don't. So what's wrong with me? Why do I see this like a crucial skill and the teachers don't think this is important? I'm mystified.
I think it's because they're prioritizing, they've got to do reading and math and science, and it's just one of those things that they don't have time for in the day.
Do they not think, though, that the kids should know how to do it and it doesn't matter that they don't know how to type? That's what I don't understand. Do they think it doesn't matter that the kids can't type? Because Tyler and I think it totally matters. Are we crazy?
Terry maybe has an answer.
And
I just want to remind all of us, because I took my typing class too, I was in junior high.
Yes.
Not third grade.
So maybe it should be junior high. Maybe we should have a quarter. I agree. Mine was in sixth grade.
It's too late. It's too late.
Hey, for the ones who never learned how to type, it's not too late.
No, but for our kids now, because they use those Chromebooks all the time, and so it's too late to wait to junior high for them to learn how.
But Caroline, I'm really curious what you're thinking, because you're saying the teachers think it's not important. I totally think that.
No, I don't think that our teachers think it's not important.
I do.
Why are we all freaking out about it and nobody else is?
Yes, I think it's competing priorities, exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Don't you think that, I mean, on the SBAC, there's the essay portion of it. I mean, isn't it possible that kids don't write as much as they might write because it's a struggle for them? And so I would think that if they know how to type, that they could type. I have to pat myself in the back because I made my son take take it. For 2 summers, I made him type every day.
See, she's really
And
great,
he's
too.
in
You
6th
and
grade.
I
I didn't do it with my daughter, and he can type really well. And now I say to him sort of smugly, aren't you glad I forced you to do that? And he says yes, because he can type his papers no problem.
cool as you.
But I haven't done it for number 2.
So why didn't you do it with number 2?
I'm going to, but it's not going as well. No, I did it in 3rd and 4th.
What is wrong with Zoe's suggestion? I
That's a
think
good
it's
one.
great. We have more minutes in PE that the kids are doing than they need, right? So
I think-
why not?
Not that they need, but that's.
Well, legal, that's what I mean. No, they need more, but but I think that's a great suggestion. And they will learn it very early. And the reason they also probably don't care is they don't have to do the kids' papers like Tyler's doing.
Right, so I have
Okay.
my comment from the kitchen cabinet.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Kitchen cabinet actually agrees with Tyler and Megan. There is a big divide between the kids who had annoying parents,
Like me?
like you and me, and also in that group, kids who took piano.
Oh,
So
I know how to type.
piano and annoying parent kids all in one group. Everybody else hunts and pecks.
Yeah.
One kid already has a wrist problem, and then they went on to lecture me about why did I let the healthcare system go so bad, because they're all gonna have arthritis because everything is technology-based now. I said that I would report out, so I did. One thing we might wanna do for those kids who, I don't understand 2nd grade, you can't spell well enough to type, but anyway. But for those kids who have already passed 3rd grade, I'm wondering if we could do something with Rotary or something where we say, as soon as you pass your Mavis Bacon, you get $10 to Starbucks or something, you know, like some kind of a reward thing to help support those parents who are trying to encourage their kids to do it over the summer.
Yes.
That's way too nice. I mean, why should, I don't understand. It should be taught in school. We shouldn't have like incentives for parents to be better parents.
Right.
We can't do it. I'm failing. I can't do it.
PE?
We can't do it.
Oh, she doesn't.
Yeah.
I'll never earn that Starbucks.
So we can bring the idea back to principals about using some PE time to support typing. You know, a short period of typing using an application.
What would high school freshman English teachers say if we said by December, all your kids need to be typing at least basic, like no hunt and peck, 30 words a minute, just basic? I mean, could they just, like for those kids who didn't get it in 3rd and 4th grade? Those interim, those medium kids, Tyler's kids. We gotta help Tyler's kids.
I would not run it through freshman English. I think
No.
there's a lot of curriculum in that class that,
No.
Okay.
you know, some school districts require a computer course as a graduation requirement
Right.
that kids can pass out of, but that would be a more systematic way. But I wouldn't run it through freshman English.
All right.
So,
Yeah, let's-
what,
Something, I hope.
what kind of timeline are we looking for, like early 2018? I know we're at the end of school.
No,
things are
fall 2017. I think you can, we can bring this to the principals, we can share your ideas with them
Katie.
and come up with a plan.
Katie and Deb don't want to talk about this anymore. Tell them your
Correct.
board is crazy and is going to
Yeah.
force them to learn how to type.
Blame the board.
So, yeah, I would like to support that, and if we don't see movement from the schools, I think that we need to agendize it and.
Would you like to put
apply
it in the
leadership, which
strategic
is
plan
horrible.
that says teach typing class at, starting in 2nd grade in the strategic plan?
No, I agree 3rd grade, because I think
I don't
Anna's
think you
right.
should
If you,
spell in 2nd grade.
You don't have to spell.
Oh,
No,
that's
all
true.
you do
It's-
is, when you start, you find where
Your
the letters are.
You'll know
You
your
just-
letters.
I brought up,
J, 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 P,
Really?
P.
Okay.
Yeah.
I brought up 2nd grade because that's where it is in our tech skills matrix.
Okay.
I think it's
All right.
second's perfect.
okay.
Sounds like-
Can adults go and join the class?
You don't know how to
I type back, I don't know how to type, nope.
So we'll bring back the idea of systematically adding typing into 2nd and 3rd grade, possibly during
And how
additional
to do it.
PE minutes.
And any strategies for Tyler's age group as well? Because we've got what, 10 grades that aren't included?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you could combine classes. Those who didn't know how to type would go to typing, and the rest of them would go to
I think
PE.
we're finally
I'm
through
sorry,
this.
before we leave the subject, we talked about summer school. Is there any chance of having typing in summer school?
Soon all we're gonna do is type.
They used
Like a separate class or just a
Like,
10-minute
we have math
practice?
classes and English classes,
A typing
a
class.
typing,
At-
once
at
a
the
week,
high
twice a
school?
week. At the high school or at the junior
Oh.
high.
Just
Offered
like
to-
that's when I took my typing, is in summer.
Yeah, that's the only reason I thought about it. It's because I did it through summer school, that and computer class.
I don't think our summer school isn't large enough that I think it would, gain enough traction. I don't think we would get that many students in summer to take typing.
In a word, Tyler.
But we could though try to work on integrating the typing app.
What about
But
the
I don't
ACES
think we
program?
would
Can
have-
we do it during that?
You guys know we have like
Okay.
15 more agenda items.
Yes, we've got several things more.
Oh, my God.
typing, Katie, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I took 2 years of typing in junior high. I remember my teachers, yes, but it was a lot more painful back then.
What about your son? What are you doing with him?
He goes on the keyboard and types. It's not touch typing, but.
Okay, so we're finished with the strategic plan, right? Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Deb.
And Carolyn, just as a reminder, the items that say yes by them that we did not talk about, those will continue in the plan.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we need a motion to approve all uncircled items as recommended by UUSD leadership.
I so
That say
move.
yes by them.
I
That say
say,
yes. Okay.
with the ones with yes by them, I say we approve.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye. Thank you, and thank you for this worksheet. That was great. Okay, next we have several first readings that go all the way from E1 and to, oh, not E1, forget that, E2 to E13. Do we have any questions about that, those?
I know, I'd like to pull E10 for further discussion, and I think.
E10,
And E11?
E10, and E11. Okay, anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to, do we have to make a
We don't
motion?
have to make a
All right,
motion.
No, this is just
No,
a
not
first
yet.
reading.
No motion?
Okay, E10,
Next
do we
time.
have some discussion on E E10?
I just have a really brief discussion. This is the controversial issues policy, and I think the intention was to give some guidance to teachers, and I'm really glad to see it. I did want to make sure that, I don't know, I'd like to make sure some teachers have looked at it and they're comfortable with it. I know between now and the next reading, I'm not sure, Deb, if any of your principals or teachers have explicitly looked at it, but if between now and the next reading, you could just ask if anyone's looked at it and if they're comfortable with it. Because, I mean, a couple of things were a little bit highlighted to me in there, but I'm not an educational professional, so what seemed like a little bit of a red flag to me, or a pinkish flag, maybe they don't feel that way.
Katie, do you have a DCC meeting between now and the next board meeting, or are they finished? Could you maybe have DCC look at this policy, give any feedback? Okay.
I just, in these perilous times, controversial issues are coming up more frequently, and I think really good
Absolutely.
guidelines for teachers would be helpful, and I just hoping it's acceptable to them.
Thank you. Okay, E11?
Well, I have to say that right off the bat, I'm not a fan of homework. So I thought that there was a board policy that there used to be that said it was 10 minutes per grade level.
Yes.
So third grade was 30 minutes. Is this taking the place of that, or is that additional, or does that not exist? Was that like myth, or does anybody know?
That hasn't been the case for a long time. I don't know how many years, but these,
It's not.
for the past 5 years at least, these have been the policies. I don't know what existed before then. And school sites actually develop a site policy where you probably have seen some of those minute requirements.
That's a
It
site.
was a board
It
policy.
used to be board
It
policy.
was a board
When I was a
policy.
principal, it
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
It was 10 minutes per grade level, right?
It was, and it went up.
10 minutes per grade
And
level.
high school teachers and junior high teachers were supposed to coordinate with other teachers to make sure that. How did we remember this stuff? Oh, my God.
Well, I
Yeah.
remember.
I know this is a CSBA reg, but I'm just interested in maybe some more conversation about homework. Looking at maybe implementing time limits again, or also discussion about types of homework. I am a big believer in reading as homework, and I'm also a believer in those math skills that aren't necessarily done in the classroom as much now with Common Core, but all kids still need to have their math facts memorized. Those sort of homework pieces that can be done entirely by students rather than parents needing to help their children with homework. For me, I think that kind of defeats the purpose of homework. I think children should be able to do it on their own. And I don't think it's fair to ask parents to be teaching their kids what they should have been taught in school. But I just don't think this policy really talks about any of that, and I'm wondering if we can, not necessarily for now, but maybe next year, if we could look at that, maybe have a committee if people are interested, to talk about homework.
We could probably run something like that through the DCC, and we did have our parent advisory committee look at this policy. They gave input into it, it changed a little bit from their input, and then we had leadership look at it as well. But if you want something more comprehensive than this, then we should probably process it through more stakeholder groups or some existing committees. I don't know that I want to form another committee in the district to look specifically at that. If the board directs us to, we will. But I think we have some existing committees that we could have some discussion next year through.
I mean, I like what they used to have with the 10 minutes per grade level, and I just wonder why that went away, if there was a reason for that, if anybody knows.
There's a really strong feeling on the part of many teachers or administrators, principals, that, because I was in this argument as well, that homework even though there's research that says it is not as necessary as we think it is, there's still a whole broad group of people who think it's essential. And that's the basis for those, they influence what happens at a school.
I also, at one of the data cycle or data, what's it called?
Cycle of inquiry.
Cycle of inquiry that we went to, there was discussion about homework at the middle school, I think it was, and how there were kids who were failing classes, and there was a concern that it was because of homework and how weighted homework was in the grading. And it just makes me think that maybe it should be looked at, because that seems like that shouldn't be a reason for failing, because you don't know what home lives are like. But I mean, I will be the first one to admit that I am not a fan of homework, personally, as a parent. So I'm a little biased here, because I'm tired of struggling with homework with my kids.
You're also a certificated teacher. I don't want to forget that. I mean,
Right.
that's another knowledge that you bring to your opinion.
Megan?
I agree with Zoe. I think this is a topic that's worth maybe greater discussion, but at least the policy, greater detail. I have two specific suggestions, and I think that my suspicion is that you would want to bring it back and have it vetted. So I'll just say what the two are. I think we should add language in there that says that school sites retain the option to implement a homework-free policy for any and all grades or courses, so they retain that option. I also think that, like Zoe, that would it make sense to have a % cap on the value given to homework? I think if we have students that are failing grades simply because they haven't turned in homework, then we are really doing a disservice to that kid. And, having fewer failing grades is a major goal of our district. And if kids are failing only because they haven't been able to turn in homework, then we're really not serving them well. So I don't know what, I was at the same cycle of inquiry that Zoe was, and I didn't fully understand what was going on in those classes where homework was being looked at as the main factor that some of these kids were failing. But if homework is something like 50% of your grade, I think that's a problem. So that, but I don't know what's going on.
And I hear you. I don't think that I know as administrators, we can't dictate to a teacher how they set up their grading system, nor could we change a grade. You could encourage it.
Can't we have a policy that homework
to
is not more than
exceed
50%?
it. I'd have to look at that legally.
Oh.
Because the law is really clear about grading with teachers. So I would just need to double check with legal counsel that the board could set a policy like that. Homework will not exceed X%.
And maybe that, I don't know if that's the way to accomplish the goal we're talking about here, but it did seem to me that it was within the policy. And I agree. I think the policy needs to be, it's a nice policy, but it's not really substantive in terms of like strong guidelines, which is fine. That's how a lot of our policies are, but it's not really it doesn't give you a lot to work with in terms of a strong sense of what the expectations are and what's appropriate. So.
Well, it seems to me like what we need to do then is to pull this off can't we just take this first reading? We don't want to have a second reading and approve this and then look at it next year. I mean, it seems like we should just not look at this right now.
Well, I think you needed to update something, right? It's no longer required in a school site plan, so there was some reason.
So we do
right?
have to do it?
Biggest update. Well, you don't have to. You can
Well,
wait. But we did have some parents look at this, and we had leadership look at it. So if it's not acceptable, we for sure need to go back to those groups and with some guidance or maybe some sample language. Because we didn't just not take this to anybody. That's a double negative, I know. I also notified the parent who's been super active in this level and told her that it was on this board agenda. She was going to let some other parents know. So, anyway.
Can I just say that I think there's one positive thing in here, Megan, and that is, I think this was dealing with, there are some teachers who, if you're absent from the class, they really don't want to give you any credit for homework. It's a very punitive thing. And so this is saying that they cannot do that they're required to accept homework. It's just
Accept
something that
homework
goes
even if
on.
the child was out of class. So
Yeah,
that's good.
for unexcused or excused, they can really, and then that does affect the child's grade. So I think that was meant to correct that attitude. And-
I don't, it's not that I think this is, useless. I just think it could be strengthened. And again, I would like to add the line that schools have the option to implement a homework-free in policy. Homework-free. If a school wants to have homework-free in a certain grade, like say we're not going to do homework in this grade or this class, let's say it's at a junior high level or I don't know, wherever, they should have that option.
So I'm confused on what we do with this at this point, because this is a first reading. Normally, we would bring it back next meeting and approve it. But if people are interested in making changes, then what do we do with this?
You can pull it off and tell us to bring it through some more input, but, Megan had a couple of ideas on talking points that would go in here, or ideas, concepts. Does the board as a whole support those concepts that we would bring back to our committees?
Well, it sounds like there's three. Trustee Fernandez is bringing up the concept of being more specific about time limits, or the expectation, whatever you remember too, Carolyn, about
For
minutes
elementary.
or something. So I guess the question is, can we look at that again, and if there was value in having that, could it be put back into the policy? Somebody mentioned something about communication amongst junior high and high school teachers so that the cumulative load was not excessive.
That was part of the
in our old
policy.
policy.
Unrealistic and will never happen.
So is there anything that could be helpful there, Anne?
Overall limits or limits per class per night. But, the one example that I have where it really struck me is the first week of freshman year in high school and the first week of sophomore year in high school. Literally, my children were both up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Because on the first, probably 2 weeks of class as a freshman and the first 2 weeks of class as a sophomore, it was so odd. It was like all the teachers were trying to prove how hard the class was going to be. Yeah. It was just odd. So I do think that
if people aren't gonna be, if teachers aren't gonna be reasonable, or, you know, reasonable from the child's point of view who might be taking 5 or 6 hard classes, then yeah, a time limit does make sense. I hate to be that restrictive to a teacher, though.
I mean, I don't know how to, I guess, or I'm not sure if, I don't know whether the time limits were useful. Maybe there was a reason they were taken out. I don't know. But having some more specific guidelines for teachers and guidelines so that parents know what to expect, I think is helpful. I mean, my thought was something also along the lines that if homework is taking, I don't know how to put this in better language, but if homework is taking a child an excessive amount of time, the teacher will be encouraged to offer a modified homework program for that child. So that there's sense there that a teacher is encouraged to address the issue that's going on in the home that's maybe taking an excessive amount of time. This would be more at the elementary school level. I don't think you could do that at high school, right? But I feel like there can be some stronger guidelines in here that could be helpful for teachers and parents.
I mean, I'm with Zoe. You know, you have some kids who are on the bus at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're in school for 6.5 hours a day, especially out in Calpella and Hopland, and then they're on the bus again for another hour. I mean, they're gone from home for 8.5 hours, and children need time to play. They need time to just do the kinds of things they like to do, if you want to talk about mental health.
Well, then when my kid goes on a swimming trip, which is extracurricular, and she gets back at 8 or 9 at night, then are we gonna be asking the teachers to give modified homework to these kids that are choosing, I think there is value in homework. I'm hearing what you're saying. I think that we need to be careful.
I'm talking elementary. Mainly elementary.
Oh, my kids don't matter.
The coaches always say that they do their homework on the bus. That's what I've been told hundreds of times. They do their homework on the bus.
I think it's complicated. I don't know the answers, but I think it's something.
You know, I remember the time limits in elementary, not in middle school.
No,
or
we're talking
high school.
elementary.
It wasn't in middle school or high school. And that's a whole different ballgame.
But there was that caveat that teachers would look to each other so that, I think there was even an example of like Monday night is math,
That's right.
Tuesday night is reading.
I thought there was a limit. Now I'm gonna have to
There
look
was
that up.
something to that effect.
That's a nice idea. It sounds super detailed without anyone go for
But-
it, but I
but-
like the concept.
But I think it would be
No, just
nice
math.
for
The
us.
teachers will argue that the kids need to do math practice every night.
Yeah.
Middle school math
Yeah.
teachers,
I
absolutely.
think before we decide
Everybody takes
to
their
do the
life too
homework
seriously.
policy, for us to do a homework policy, we really need to engage schools, teachers. Parents have a different angle on this. And so we're getting very personal, not in a negative way, but just that how we're looking at it. And I understand that, but there are reasons, and sometimes they're fair and logical, and sometimes not. So we need to really know what makes good sense and what doesn't, coming from our teachers and,
I think it's a good suggestion that Deb had to go through DCC.
yeah.
And
So-
maybe that meeting could be announced, especially to the board members and to more publicly than you would normally announce it when you're gonna cover this topic.
Well, I was also thinking that maybe site councils could look at it, because you have parents on site councils.
Yes. That's a
So
good idea.
as far as process goes for the input that we have from the board members, could you guys write them down, give them to Deb or Debbie, so that way when it's going through these different groups, they can review your ideas and see if they're legal, if they have any validity, if it pisses teachers off.
Sounds good.
Getting late,
Yeah.
getting tired.
Okay. All right, anything else on these first readings?
So should we wait to bring this back until the fall? Because we won't hit
I would.
site councils.
I think it should be
We
brought
probably won't bring it back before October.
Yeah, I think
Unless we're gonna be illegal not to have it. We can let our current one stay put and we're not gonna be out of compliance. Okay, I agree.
I
Retrieve my
have to look at the
question.
CSBA guidance on that, but.
Okay, superintendent's report.
I think I'm good.
Okay, all right. Board members report.
Well, to start with, I'm kidding.
Very briefly, I think that we ought to have a board retreat to Mexico. It is a very good thinking place.
I would just like to say that I was really excited for our choral groups that went to their festival last Saturday, and the advanced choir came in second.
Oh.
And they went up like 8 points or something. They got a 94 or something like that score. And the girls' choir came in first in their division.
Did you
So-
submit the press release?
So it was pretty exciting.
That's great.
Oh, a press release? My article's coming out.
It's very brief. Your article will be great.
Okay.
Put a picture with your article.
I was gonna try to do that, yeah. You have a picture too? Oh, well.
Make sure it's not the same picture.
Usurping me. Okay, student expulsions. Right, we need a motion to suspend the expulsion of student AA 511 2017 for the spring of 2017 and the fall of 2017-18 school year. Do we have a motion for that?
I so move.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, a motion to expel student BB 511 2017 for the spring of 2017 and the fall of 2017-18 school year.
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there's something you want to pull off.
I so move.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Then we go to planning, is that right? So we have several things. We need to schedule another board meeting for the superintendent's evaluation, since we didn't even get to it tonight, unless you want to go and meet now for that.
Oh, excellent.
It did get changed.
We'll start at 10.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds great.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sure
I missed
Deb's
that. I was
really
looking
up
up
for
the school
that.
board policy.
You get a 10-minute break, and then we'll be starting on the superintendent's evaluation.
Oh, really?
I think we need to.
I was
schedule.
hoping to start my birthday celebration.
Oh, really? It's gonna be your birthday?
Sunday.
So,
I'm starting tomorrow.
so when are we,
I started 3 weeks ago.
looking at another meeting this month, I assume?
Are you talking about if we discuss it in closed session tonight?
Yes, but I was not considering it since it's almost 10 o'clock.
That means you'd have 2 special meetings.
And I don't think Deb needs to be here any longer.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
So we'd have 2 special meetings?
Can we do it in one?
No, I mean,
Well, because we talked,
Wait a minute, two special meetings.
Well, we need one meeting for Deb to go over her goals
Okay.
with us. And then, for us to look at our surveys. We usually do that in a second meeting.
All right. So,
Can-
we can't do it all at once?
Can we
and
do it
send her
in
out?
one if Deb comes in and does her goals and then she leaves?
Send her home?
I personally feel that that's shortchanging
The process.
the process. Because I think if
Okay.
she goes over it, I think it's to all of our benefit,
Okay.
personally, unless Deb, you feel differently.
No, that's fine. We can do a short lunchtime meeting maybe for that first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What day?
Okay.
What's a good one? You know,
What? I don't need to do it now.
Or
no,
we
I
could do
just,
it now. Can we do it now?
go ahead and try to schedule, I'm sorry, I'm annoying,
Or should we just try to do it?
Do you want to do it now?
No, I don't want to do it now. I just don't know, I don't have my schedule with me, but I don't want to be the only person who can't schedule something. So if you all feel like you can pick a date, I'll just make sure I try to figure out a date. Debbie, is that too hard? You want us to try to pick a date right now? Is that crazy?
So let's do it.
Do what?
You pick a date for lunch.
So a lunchtime meeting,
Okay,
is there a date next week that we could do a lunchtime meeting?
Debbie?
Are you looking at your calendar?
I don't currently work now.
What if we took, I hate to sacrifice a coffee. What if we took I'm signed up for coffee on the 17th at 8 o'clock, so Deb must be busy from 8 to 9:30 on that day. Could we take that
I
time?
am still celebrating my birthday. I'll be back in the afternoon, late afternoon. I can do Friday, Saturday, the next Monday or Tuesday. No, Monday, I can't do Tuesday.
So you can't do next week?
yeah, do.
Well, I could do
16th?
Thursday or Friday.
Oh, the 17th or 18th?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
No, that would be
18th
the
and
18th or 19th.
I mean 18th and 19th.
Oh, 18th and 19th?
I have a county superintendent.
18th doesn't work?
Tuesday.
Okay, Deb says 18 doesn't work.
We have leadership all day on the 18th, the 19th, we have superintendent's council.
Okay,
Oh, okay, that's.
all right. So that moves us to the next week.
Okay.
We have negotiations on the 22nd,
Mm.
but we could do a lunchtime.
Oh, between the negotiations, you mean?
Uh-huh.
22nd?
I can do the 22nd.
Everybody okay with the 22nd?
I'm out of town.
You're out of town?
We'll be
Yeah,
here,
but
but
don't worry about it.
But
It's gonna be almost impossible at this late date for me, so don't even worry about it.
okay, the 22nd, does that work, Deb?
We'll tell that to Karen.
Noon?
I
Oh, yeah.
I know everyone's tired.
I think we should
Do it tonight.
Push through?
15 minutes tonight.
That's what I think. I think we should do 15 minutes tonight.
Okay.
But we still have to schedule a special meeting,
Okay.
but then we don't have to schedule two.
But can we schedule a special meeting? Can you send up, can we do it like a doodle poll?
Huh?
Yes.
And this special meeting is for?
What is doodle?
To go over her
and to go over
evaluation.
the evaluation, right?
And then you write the letter. Then you write the letter from
Yes.
there.
For some reason, I couldn't.
I can do it.
It's an online poll to schedule something.
But the evaluation isn't due till the 18th, so it has to be after.
Deb will work with everybody to find a date.
Okay, so we'll do closed session tonight for
evaluation isn't
just a
due
few
till the
minutes. Are you up to it? Your face is getting red. I'm afraid you have a fever.
Okay, and then what?
Yeah, she's gonna schedule a special meeting for class.
Can I clarify, your email said Deborah's evaluation from us is due on the 18th, isn't that right?
No, the one you have, you're gonna, I haven't said that, you have to
Zoe
21st.
was doing a
Okay,
monthly thing.
I
Oh,
can't,
okay.
Maybe tomorrow if we meet tonight.
Yes.
okay, what about agenda planning?
June 6th at 11 a.m. Tuesday, June 6th, 11 a.m.
I can do it, I think I'm due.
Okay, who would like to do agenda planning
I think it's my turn, but I'm happy to accommodate.
at 11? Okay, Gail? Who else? Huh?
I can do it if nobody else can do it.
Okay,
Anybody else?
No, not me.
okay, Gail, B, and myself,
Oh, no, it's the 6th at
the
11.
6th. Okay,
And
and,
then after we do a Deb thing tonight, we decide on, oh no, that's the doodle back.
No, Debbie's gonna figure out
okay. All right, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I'll second it.
What, to close session?
I'll second that too.
All right, all in favor?
Can we go right there?
Yeah.
We're going here?